All right, looks like we are live. Well, hello everybody. I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in today in this sort of impromptu last minute debate. All right. Today I am joined by a friend of mine, actually, somebody here local, and his name is Davis, and he is here to defend the spinning space ball, which I believed in for the majority of my life until the last couple of years when people on the internet started to question it. And when I looked into it, I personally found that the spinning space ball model, there's just too many weird problems going on here, and now I don't believe in it. And in fact, now I basically call myself a flat earther at this point. Never thought in a million years that one day I was gonna be a flat earther. Last thing I ever thought I would be, but that's where endless hours of thinking about it has brought me to. So again, what's up, man? If you want to just maybe just introduce yourself real quick and tell us why you believe we live on a spinning space ball, and very briefly.
Sure. So I'll preface this by saying I'm not on the bandwagon jumping in on flat earthers as sort of like a cult. I'm honestly here just mainly as a curiosity. We've known each other for, I think a few years at this point. And I'm mainly just fascinated by how you've come to your own conclusions, and I was gonna, try to. Not that I have any sort of expertise. I have like an above average understanding of space exploration and aerospace history and all that stuff. So I'm essentially just going off the top and bringing all that to the table and, see if it sticks on the board, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Sounds awesome. Just put a quick link here in the chat. I was demonetized by YouTube about 2 months ago. So
yeah, I'm sure they took care of that real quick.
Yeah, that was great. YouTube has demonetized me. You can send PayPal donations through this link. Okay, sorry, and boom. Yeah, so now people can't just send a super chat. Now I gotta post a fucking PayPal link. So yeah, they're just crushing it.
Nice.
For some reason, they're scared of flat Earth. I mean, what do you think about that, real quick, just as a general thing? I don't know if you knew, but YouTube released a blog post a couple months ago saying we are going to censor flat Earth videos. We're going to limit their reach. We're not gonna recommend them as much as we recommend other videos. So we are using algorithms to cut short flat Earth's reach on YouTube. What do you think about that? Why do you think a massive corporation feels the need to cut back on flat Earth, but not Bigfoot, aliens, etc.?
I don't know if I could be wrong, but it was my understanding that I think conspiracies as a whole were pretty much just shunned off of YouTube. I would assume the reason for that is mainly money's sake, because we've gone through like 3 or 4 adpocalypses so far.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not certain if flat Earth has been targeted specifically, but I'm sure it's included amongst the crowd. But I think it comes down to the bottom line, and I think you could also make an argument that it's definitely become a more PC platform, and they want to kind of, I guess, shut off a certain amount of discourse. Like a lot of independent journalists, like Tim Pool, for example, they've been kind of snuffed out as well. They have to tread very fine lines in order to keep producing the kind of content and still have the engagement that they have.
Even Tim Pool, who's like about as moderate and kosher as you could possibly get, and he's like a terrorist now, according to YouTube.
Yeah.
Let me just put this chat up here. Oh, wait, don't want to show that link to the Hangout. Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, and to be clear, they released a blog post, and they specifically mentioned flat Earth. Obviously, flat Earth isn't the only thing they're going after, but they literally mentioned flat Earth. They said 9/11 conspiracies and flat Earth. Now, there's obviously that probably includes other topics, but they literally mentioned flat Earth as one of the topics they're going after. But you said they're going after conspiracies in general, but I don't see the kind of taboo reaction to flat Earth like I see to certain other conspiracies. For example, like the whole ancient aliens conspiracy. That is like, I mean, they encourage you to speculate about ancient aliens. I mean, you as an American citizen, you're allowed to come home after a long day of work, plop down on your couch, and just drool into ancient alien marathons for like 10 hours straight. I find it interesting how there's some conspiracies that it's almost like they want you to think about, and then there's others where it's we got to crack down, we got to discredit at all costs. And for me, and let me just hold up these little flat Earth, flat globe models I have here. This is flat, and then we got the spinning space ball. And for me, obviously, if the Earth is flat, then everything they tell us about our place in reality is suddenly up for grabs now. And so, what if space isn't real, or what if space isn't what they tell us? What if space itself is a violation of the second law of thermodynamics? What if how do you have a pressurized system next to the massive vacuum of space? So I think that if it turns out we don't live on a spinning space ball, if it turns out what they tell us about space isn't true, then I have to wonder why would they lie about it, and then why do they want us all thinking ancient aliens this, ancient aliens that? I find it interesting how aliens is so heavily pushed nowadays, it seems, as the sanctioned conspiracy that you can speculate about. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, I would say, like, especially the popularity of the Bob Lazar podcast with Joe Rogan is a real good example of that as well. I don't see the point, because to be honest, flat Earth conspiracy, it seems pretty harmless. It seems pretty innocuous. So I don't get it, to be honest.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It should be the silliest thing ever, right? I mean, it sounds silly. Like, that is everyone's reaction to flat Earth is, wow, that's some goofy, dumb shit. Like, you're stupid. But, like, where's the edge, type shit. Where's the edge, man? But, 186 watching. That's not bad. Still shadow ban heavily, but that's okay. Yeah, sorry. So, yeah, it's interesting. I think that flat Earth should be considered as goofy as Bigfoot. It should be as goofy as Bigfoot. Ha ha ha. Little conspiracy people having a good time. But for YouTube to target it by name, it's just really weird. But let's go ahead and get off that topic. Okay, well, I guess I'll start off with a question for you, and that is, well, I guess, why do you think you live on a sphere?
So, I am fascinated with aerospace. I guess even from just as a child, the fascination of sci-fi, extraterrestrial exploration of other planets. Human civilization becoming more advanced and us colonizing other planets and other worlds. It's a very exciting idea. So I was captivated of that as a little kid. I've always been into engineering and just technical stuff. It's fascinated me. So over the course of my life, because of that, I've just been naturally exposed to the information and wanting to seek knowledge. So I would say even more recently, in the last couple of years, I've been getting more obsessed with rocketry, and I have my own personal will to want to eventually get into amateur rocketry and then maybe even have a profession in current aerospace, privatized aerospace. So my belief system has basically just been my argument would be this essentially, is that so much of my worldview would have to change or be altered to fit the narrative or to fit the idea that the Earth is flat. And I come at this from a standpoint of having a visual effects background. The reason why I mention that is because when it comes to rendering and mimicking real life, everything that you do in visual effects has to be physically based if you want to achieve a photorealistic effect. That also coupled with aviation, space flight, the history of space flight, the development of rocket tech, propulsion systems, ablation, coordinates, global positioning systems, et cetera, et cetera. So much would have to change in order for that to kind of fit the criteria of it being a flat Earth. So we can go ahead and pull that apart and kind of unpack that and see what's under there.
So it's kind of like a personal incredulity kind of thing. You just can't
Sure.
believe that it would be such an epic. There's no way so many fields could be wrong. There's no way that there could be such an epic mistake or an epic lie. Is that basically a personal incredulity kind of thing?
Personal as well as I mean, a lot of it is evidence based and from empirical data as well as just raw like actual video, and a lot of people. I don't know how often this gets thrown around, but people um, kind of like picking apart a video of either weather balloons going up or test rockets, like amateur rockets, that are making it up 100,000 feet in the air, high enough to be able to see the curvature of the Earth. Filming on a GoPro, people kind of picking that apart and saying the horizon line's flat, there's no curvature, or even say like a live video feed from the International Space Station. I don't see how you could argue with sort of, I guess, the most in your face sort of evidence. Maybe, perhaps that's something we could start with.
Sure.
I'm interested to hear what you have to say about videos or actual footage from space.
Well, part of the problem with videos and picture from space is that 99.9% of the human population has never been up there. And I do think sometimes when flat earthers say, "Oh, that looks fake," I do think it's like, well, how do you know that? I mean, just because it looks fake, I mean, you've never been up there. So you don't know what Earth looks like from outside of Earth. If you want to presuppose that we can go outside of the spinning space sphere for a second here, nobody knows what it looks like, but I think that's a knife, that's a sword that cuts both ways. Because on one level, you could say, well, flat earther, you say these pictures of Earth from space look fake. How do you discern that? You've never seen the Earth from space to know what to compare it to. You've never been high up enough, even in a plane, at 30-some thousand feet. So a little newsflash, in case you didn't know, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, you can't see Earth curvature from your average commercial airliner of flying around 30 or 35,000 feet.
Sorry, did you say he can, or you can, or you can't?
You cannot, according
No,
to
you
him.
can't,
He says you can't see it. He says it's flat at 128,000 feet. I want to ask you a quick question. Did you hear about the Red Bull jump a few years ago, where the guy jumped from really high up?
Yeah,
And he was
yeah.
like, you heard about that, right?
I saw the live stream or whatever.
Okay,
Yeah.
you saw a live stream. There's obvious Earth curvature in that video. I mean, do you remember seeing like Earth curvature?
Yeah, but to be honest, it was so far away. I mean, I barely remember it, but yeah, I think, yeah, there should be, right?
Yeah, well, right, there should be. Well, let me pull the clip up for you because it's such a delicious clip. Now, how high do you think you have to be to see Earth curvature? Just maybe off the top of your head, what do you think?
That's actually a good question. I'm not sure.
Do you think you can see it from an airplane? Have you ever flown an airplane, looked out the window, and been like,
No.
"Ooh, I see Earth curve"?
No, you can't see it from the airplanes. You're too shallow.
Okay, so you believe that you're too short at that altitude, too low at that altitude, right?
Yeah.
Okay, southwest. Pull this up. I mean, I don't
Okay,
think
so
you're
if
going to
the
be able
Earth
to hear the audio unless you listen to the live stream, but that's probably delayed. So I won't be. If you look at the, let me actually share my screen on the Hangout here, and I'll just do a little. I'll do a little thingy here. Okay, bam, and share screen, and okay, you should see my screen on the Google Hangout right now. You should see what I'm showing here.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you see Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Yeah. Sure.
He's an astrophysicist.
Yes, I know.
No, I'm just reiterating for everybody as well.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
If anybody knows, if anybody's an authority on this, it's going to be a guy who, when you go to his Twitter bio, there's one word, last I checked, describing what he is and what he does. One word: astrophysicist. Guy works at the Hayden Planetarium, educating kids, adults, and everything in between about where we live and the nature of our reality. And he's got the show Cosmos. He's a science educator. Most recently, a bunch of Globers were trying to distance themselves because this clip came out where I'll show you in a second, Neil deGrasse Tyson says the GoPro the Red Bull jump with Felix Baumgartner, who jumped from 128,000 feet. That's high. That's high. 128,000 feet. And even though there's obvious curvature in the footage captured from his GoPro camera at 128,000 feet, watch what Neil deGrasse Tyson has to say. I'm going to play it so the audience can hear it, and then I will tell you what was said.
Sure.
Give me half a second.
Actually, this size, the International Space Station would be orbiting about a half an inch above the surface. And that dude who jumped out of a perfectly good balloon, what's his name? Felix!
That dude who jumped out of a I'm paraphrasing him as he goes. That dude who jumped out of a perfectly good balloon. Felix Baumgartner, the Red Bull jump, 128,000 feet.
Felix Baumgartner, he would have been about 2 millimeters above the surface of this globe.
He would have been about 2 millimeters above the surface of this globe.
That's his edge of space jump.
That's his edge of space jump. He says it sarcastically. Audience is laughing.
Now, you know, I don't. It's fine. He wants to. I don't have a problem if he does it, but the honesty of it would greatly.
He goes, I don't have a problem if he jumps from the quote edge of space, but the honesty of it.
Diminish what I think people thought he was actually doing.
The honesty of it diminishes what people think they thought he was actually doing that day. Almost done.
And not only that, they made sure to photograph him standing there with a really wide-angle lens.
And not only that, they made sure to photograph him standing up there with a really wide-angle lens.
Which curves horizontal lines.
Which curves horizontal lines.
So in the photo, you see this curvature of Earth's surface, and he's.
So in the photo, you see this curvature of Earth's surface in the Felix Baumgartner photo.
Wow, he's in space. Look at that.
And people go, wow, he's in space. Look at that.
No, he's not.
And then Tyson goes, no, he's not.
At that height, you don't see the curvature of the Earth if you are 2 millimeters above this beach ball.
At that height, you don't see the curvature of the Earth if you are 2 millimeters above this beach ball. And then he finishes that off with this.
You just don't. That stuff is flat.
You just don't. That stuff is flat. Now, I know I rambled on and that's not fair, but my point is quite simply, Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist, arguably the most popular in the world, goes around touring, educating, etc., says you cannot see Earth curvature from 128,000 feet, 4 times the height of the average commercial airliner. So I guess I just have a real quick question. For all the people who've flown on airplanes at 35,000 feet, looked out the window, and say confidently that they saw the Earth curve, the curvature of the Earth, were they hallucinating? What was wrong with them? What happened?
No, I think that's bogus. I don't know why they're claiming that, because I'll give you an example. So the International Space Station, I'll say this, I'll probably get So the International Space Station is said to orbit at 220 miles, which is about 1.1 million feet. There you can see a clear distinction like between the height differences. Like, I mean, you're talking about 10 times the height of Felix, whatever his name was, the guy who did the Red Bull jump.
Yeah.
So, to be honest, I don't even remember seeing the video. I could probably pull it up here on YouTube and explain. But from what I'm guessing is so Neil is essentially trying to say that no, even at that height, you wouldn't be able to see any kind of curvature. I would say you'd probably see like at least a few degrees, but it'd probably be so minuscule you wouldn't be able to tell. The problem is, you know, I actually have a fisheye lens in my closet. I probably should have fished that out. But essentially what happens is you're getting lens distortion. If I can kind of try to visualize this, let me see if I can get my camera up.
Yeah, you can share your screen if you need to. Just let me know. I'll tell you how to do
I'll
it.
just do it. So like say you have like this is the lens, okay?
Yep.
If you drew a horizontal line at the perfect center of the lens and you shift it up or shift it down, your image would refract and bend according
Yes.
to wherever the
Yes.
focal point of your camera is placed. So that will distort your image, and it's
Yep.
like if I had video examples here, I could tell you which one's doing it and which ones aren't.
Yeah.
But for the astronaut,
I would say the average flat earther is very familiar with the fisheye lens because you don't know how many pictures from high altitude with a fucking fisheye GoPro lens were used by Globers as proof of curvature. And it took a flat earther to say, dude, that's actually just warped distortion caused by a fisheye lens. So yes, we're well aware of the fisheye lens. If you're a flat earther, you know all about it, and we know that if it's pointed up, the curve will curve one direction. If you point it down, the curve bends the opposite direction. You can have concave, you can have convex, you can have flat, all warping within a fisheye lens. So yeah, we're definitely well aware of that. I just wanted to point that out because like we know, dude, and I say that because it's frustrating every time someone points to a GoPro fisheye lens picture or video and says, "Look, man, that proves we live in a sphere," and then it turns out it was just a wide-angle lens. So yeah, we're definitely well aware.
okay. Well, maybe we could get into some more advanced stuff then. One of the things that I was going to bring up is essentially how you would be able to, I guess, square or quantify the reasons. So I'll start back here. So during the Cold War, for example, and during the space race, the Soviets and the United States were basically head to head in terms of an arms race. They were also spying on each other. So spy satellites, like here, let me boil it down to this. Let's talk about orbits. So launching a rocket. I don't know if you've ever seen a rocket launch. We live in Florida, so we could actually both take a drive up to the Space Center during one of SpaceX's recent launches, if you even want to. But
yeah, that would be fucking amazing. I would totally do that as long as you don't like to throw my body into rivers. I'm just kidding. Who do you work? Who do you work for, man? No, I'm just kidding.
So if you look at rocket launches, you'll notice when the rocket starts, it's vertical, but they do what's called a gravity turn once it gets enough. Essentially thrust. So a rocket goes up and then starts to go sideways because you've probably gotten this rudimentary explanation of orbits before where you have to go so fast that you're essentially going so fast you're skipping or missing the curve of the Earth and you're not hitting the atmosphere. So the atmosphere is getting thinner and thinner and thinner. Your orbit has to be high enough where you're not experiencing any sort of aerodynamic forces, any sort of friction that's going to slow your craft down and then deorbit your craft. So in sort of what did they call it? The model of the flat Earth model? Is it just the flat Earth model?
There isn't one. There is no official flat Earth model because, I mean, first of all, we don't have $50 million a day like NASA does. We don't have the backing of the establishment. We don't have the backing of educational systems. We don't have basically the entire authority system. We do not have the backing and funding of it. So unfortunately, there is no fully fleshed out flat Earth model. Maybe if we have $50 million a day, we can really do some crazy stuff. But at the moment, with everybody, I'm sorry?
Maybe launch a rocket. No, I'm kidding.
No, you could launch a rocket. I mean, many flat earthers have tried launching high altitude balloons. Of course, they try not to put the fucking GoPros on there because then you get the artificial curve.
Right.
Some have claimed, there's been some Globers who have told me, and you know, in all fairness to you, you know, I'm going to present some of the best Glober arguments I've ever heard because, you know, it's just, you know, I'm interested in the truth. So if I hear an argument that the Globers make that's the best possible argument I've heard and you don't bring it up, I mean, I'll bring it up because I've been digging into this for years now, so I might as well mention it to you. I'm not just going to leave you in the dark. But some have claimed that they've done, flat earthers and others have done high altitude weather balloon launches with, I think they're called rectilinear lenses that don't have these distortions, and there's still some visible curvature. Now, we still have a bit of a consensus contradiction crisis with Neil deGrasse Tyson saying you can't see curve from 128,000 feet, so maybe we got to throw him under the bus. That seems to be what the top tier Globers are doing. They're saying he's just an entertainer. He doesn't know what he's talking about. So they totally threw his ass under the bus because I think some top tier Globers have actually said you can see curvature from like even like 30 some thousand feet. So there's a bit of a problem here because the numbers are conflicting, the consensus is conflicting. No one seems to have the right or the same consistent answer, which is fine. I have nothing against answers conflicting, but the problem is that a lot of the globe defenders, they are consensus cult members. They operate by consensus, and they use consensus to bludgeon you over the head if you try to question what the current consensus is. So
Sort of like
the current
model.
Sorry?
Sort of like the climate change model. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I'm rambling too much. I should shut up. But I just want to finish that real quick. Yes, exactly. Just like climate change. Just like you question climate change, you're a science denier. We got conspiracy cats in the chat here. He's one of the top tier globe defenders. He says that flat earthers aren't harmless because they become paranoid. Well, just like with climate change, you question climate change. You're bad for the environment. How dare you, anti-science? You know, they always, when they're bullshitting you, they try to fearmonger and demonize you when you're just asking questions. You're not allowed to ask questions. So some have said they can see curvature, but I'm not convinced when the world's most popular astrophysicist, real popularizer, Neil deGrasse Tyson says, yeah, those 128,000 feet camera will not be able to see Earth curve.
Yeah, I really don't know what the height level is where you can see an obvious curve with the naked eye. So at least Neil deGrasse Tyson, him and like other people that are kind of these pop science guys, I'm not like, I guess they're good for kind of getting the general public excited about science, but to be honest, I feel like the kind of people who follow them are like basic like I guess thoughts that would just be like, oh my god, I love science, and they like follow pages like I fucking love science, and they pretend they have a few brain cells in between their ears, but. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like like kind of like junk food. It's like junk food information. So I'm not gonna say anything about Neil or what his position is.
You're throwing him under the bus, which is fine. I'm just saying you're throwing him under the bus.
I mean, yeah.
Do you know more about astrophysics than Neil deGrasse Tyson? Yes or no? Just a quick question.
No.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
So should I defer to Neil or should I defer to you for expertise?
I mean, Neil's the expert, but as far as like that presentation that he gave, I'm not sure what his point was. I think he was just trying to say that.
Well,
he was trying to say that you couldn't see the curve from 130,000 feet, which I guess could make sense. Again, I don't know. I haven't even flown in a plane in years, so
yeah,
I've never noticed an Earth curvature on a plane. I don't know exactly where you would start to see visible curvature, but. Yeah, like I'm not really sure. I guess people are kind of prodding and trying to pull apart, I guess one specific show he was doing.
Yeah,
but I don't even want to dwell on that because
it wasn't just a speech he was giving. He also put a tweet out about it. So he even wrote it down. So I mean, you can say he misspoke, but he wrote it down too. There's a tweet version of it.
Well, it's not like Neil is the proponent of globe theory or whatever the fuck.
He's an astrophysicist. I mean,
I don't know what even his goal is to try and engage with flat earthers. It's way below his pay grade anyway, right?
Well, you think it would be below his pay grade, but he tweets about it. I mean, often enough. He put out multiple tweets debunking flat earthers and flat earther claims. So people go to him for truth. He's not just a popularizer. Who cares? Haha. He tries to debunk things with logic and reason and alleged evidence, and people go to him and retweet by the thousands under the presumption that he's giving them the truth because he's the science guy.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying from the perspective of scientific consensus, which says we live on a sphere, sometimes the people who dictate consensus are contradicting themselves and they're saying things that aren't really adding up and throw a monkey wrench in the globe model as far as I'm concerned, because there's so many millions of people who say they've seen Earth curve from a plane, and according to him, who should know, you can't see it. So yeah, I don't want to nag on that. It's just a really and you're not like the freaking ambassador for Neil Tyson, so I shouldn't hold you based on what he says. But a lot of Globers operate, I said this earlier, I don't want to be redundant, but a lot of Globers, they operate by consensus. like climate change, and they bludgeon you over the head. 99% of climate scientists agree climate change is caused by people. So anybody who questions it must be wrong.
Yeah, those models are inherently kind of volatile in terms of their projections, because when you spread out the graph, it just gets so sort of esoteric in terms of trying to map out any sort of realistic projection. It just, I don't know. As far as like consensuses go, like this is the problem, is that I don't even want to talk about Neil deGrasse Tyson, because then that makes me look like I'm actually defending him. But to be honest, him and like, Bill Nye and whoever else is like, these pop science icons, I generally don't follow them. I think if you want to actually get to real science, you follow individuals that are actually engineers, that are actually dedicated designers, and people that actually work in the industry. So I don't think, I really don't give a fuck what Neil deGrasse Tyson or Bill Nye has to say about it, because again, they're just like these artificially propped up sort of spokespersons for general mainstream science culture.
Right.
But I do want to kind of get to some more technical things. So I don't want to throw too much on the table here, but so let's talk about. Well, actually, let me ask you something. Did we land on the moon?
Well, because I can't find any proof of curvature, scientific, repeatable, verifiable, experimental proof of curvature, I can't possibly believe we landed on the moon. So maybe if you can show me some proof of curvature somewhere, anything, please, then I'll believe it. Sure.
Well, okay. Let's unpack curvature for a second then. So if I observe the moon and it's spherical, or at least it's round, how does that sort of fit into the worldview then?
Oh, I have a better question for you, friend.
Okay, let's hear it.
How does the sun and the moon, both having the same angular size, fit in your worldview?
The same angular size? Are you saying like how in when you're viewing them outside, they're essentially the same size, visible to the naked eye?
You got it. Yes. So just for the audience, I'll elaborate. Yeah, read your mainstream. Actually, I have one here. Read your mainstream college textbook your cosmology textbook, your astronomy textbook, and they will say the sun and the moon have the same angular size. Now that's apparent size. That's what they look like. But do you know how much bigger the sun is than the moon, according to the model that you're defending here today? Do you know how big, like the size difference?
So the moon is roughly the size of. Oh, geez, I'm gonna probably get this wrong.
It's all right. I'm not expecting you to know factoids like that.
The moon is like 1/6 the diameter of the Earth, probably even smaller.
Yeah, and then the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon. I believe they say it's quite large.
They say you could fit 1,000,000 Earths in the sun.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Actually, I think I remember Bill Nye, the science guy, saying that.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I've heard is that the reason the sun and moon appear to be the same size in the sky, kind of a coincidence if you ask me. It's like, oh shit, the two most prominent celestial bodies in our sky appear to be the same size. Well, kind of interesting, but whatever, just brush that on the rug. So they say that the only reason they appear to be the same size is because the sun is actually 400 times further away from us than the moon is, but the sun is also 400 times bigger than the moon. And I know
Really?
I know you mentioned 1,000,000 Earths fit in the sun, so I don't think that math is adding up right there. But I'm
not sure.
I'm very sure that is what they say. The sun is 400 times further away from us than the moon, but because the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon, they appear to be the same size. So a moment ago you mentioned, well, the moon is spherical, so how does that fit in your model? Well, in the spinning heliocentric spaceball worldview, where everything exploded out of nothing in a big bang for no reason, with no direction, order, intelligent design, it was all random and spontaneous. What are the odds of that? What are the odds that the sun and the moon would appear to be the same size in our sky? That's just kind of wild.
So, I guess that would go back to almost like, I mean, there's like these paradoxes, like the Fermi paradox, the odds of other life being. This is kind of getting into a bigger discussion on random chance, and I guess sort of the fundamental theories of how reality and just us as physically based forms and all that stuff came into fruition. So, man, then you're going to be talking about evolutionary theory and essentially the construction of the cosmos. Well, I guess the happening of, how do I even put this? We're getting into such a big topic. So this gets into, I guess, the hurdles that would be in place for everything to sort of go right. And this, how do I put this, man? This is like literally everything.
It's all we gotta do the whole picture.
Yeah. So essentially the idea, I mean, I don't want to have to explain the Big Bang, but maybe I have to. So, expansion, space expanding down to itself, everything starts to cooling, your basic fundamental elements start forming. I can hear you. There you go. And the kind of walls that would be the hurdles in place, you would have to have a planet that has the right amount of liquid water. You'd have to have a planet that has a certain kind of chemical mixture. Like this is, I'm not terribly educated on this subject to explain with great detail, but essentially the idea is that, like we exist, therefore we have passed all the barriers in place, not in place, but all the natural barriers that would have prevented us from existing. I think during the Ice Age or some sort of plague, humanity was reduced down to like several tens of thousands of people, and then we managed to reproduce and get back to a healthy population size.
A lot of assumptions here. I just want to.
A lot of assumptions. I'm not backing anything up with any credible sources here, but this isn't unlike what the standard science models are depicting. Man, to be honest, I lost the original point.
Well, look. How about this? So, isn't it also known as the anthropic principle? Isn't that it? Or maybe it's Occam's razor? Because you mentioned how you said Fermi paradox, and I don't know if that's exactly the one, but I think it's also called the anthropic principle, where it's like, yeah, of course we exist, because we would only exist if we were existing. So it's like, it's not weird that we exist. It's just, if you are existing, then, well, that's exactly what would have happened, because that's what happened. But I feel like, I don't know, that seems like a bit of a cop-out, because, look, the sun and the moon being the same angular size in the sky, and the way they explain that away is that, it's 400 times further away, but it's also 400 times bigger. And so that's why, I mean, it's just for me, man, like, on a pure, like, what are the odds level, I'm just saying...
Oh, they're astronomical.
I would love to know what the number is.
I would love to as well. I'll say this, like, I grew up in a Christian household, and I, was essentially Christian for most of my life until like I guess late high school, and then out of high school was when I started to kind of form my own opinions and ideas and stuff. But that was an argument that I was familiar with back then, because as a creationist I'd have to defend, well, of course it's not possible for it to be so random. And by the way, I'm not an atheist. I'm not negating any sort of an idea of a creator or like I don't want to say divine plan. That sounds too religious, but I'm definitely very spiritual and don't think that this comes out of nothing. I think you're also one who is familiar with causality, like something has had to have been there in the place for the Big Bang to even happen. Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, the short answer is it's chance and it's random. And luckily, we were able to pass through all these sort of tests and hurdles that would have completely wiped out a civilization. I mean, we have massive extinction level events that have occurred on this planet before and have wiped out, a plethora of biological life forms, and we've made it this far.
Assumption. Assumption.
Well, based on observations. I mean, we have cosmic background radiation.
You observed millions of years of extinct animals? Who observed that?
Well, I mean, you can dig up fossils from the ground.
Does that prove that they're millions of years old?
With carbon dating.
I've heard some issues with carbon dating, but I'm
It's
definitely.
it's it's pretty reliable.
Eesh. I've heard some counter arguments, but I'm definitely not an expert on that, so I won't even bother going there.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't want to get into semantics as well. I want to stick with what um, I'm more familiar with, not as like a cop out to
no, it's fine.
help
We can
argue.
only defend what we know, so.
Sure. So science has a strict no God rule. I don't know if that's the case. Science is just a process of finding what's true in reality, isn't it?
Sorry, you read that in the chat or something?
I read the chat.
What,
Anyway,
what was it? What did they say?
he said that science has a strict no God allowed rule. Not in my view.
No, well, not, yeah. The word that I like to use instead of science is physicalism. That's probably the real specific term. Physicalism, definitely, there's no room for God in physicalism. And that's what most, quote, scientists, that's the worldview they operate through.
That's like a Sam Harris, I would say.
He's a physicalist atheist, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And he's very intelligent, and I actually like a lot of his ideas, but I think he kind of naively assumes of there not being sort of a hierarchical existence outside of whatever we're in. Like, I don't want to get too meta about this because we're kind of, I feel like we're getting on a tangent, but yeah, man, I would say it might not be a sufficient answer for you, but I would say, yeah, random chance and by sheer luck and just like,
Come on, that doesn't make you scratch your head a little bit.
no, it does. Look, it's valid to criticize. Like, I mean, I told you in the text before we did this thing, I'm very akin to skepticism, and I've had world-shattering things that have kind of changed my view, and I've kind of like looked at in my hands, and I'm like wondering what the fuck is happening. Like, where am I?
Yep.
But so let me try to bring this back a little bit. So, all right, I'll go from, I guess, an industry standpoint. We can go back. I'd like to go back to rockets because I'll talk about something as mundane as like a global positioning system, like a GPS array, or communication satellites, internet, cosmonauts and the U.S.'s space program, NASA, private industry, all these things that are happening right now, aerospace development, engineering, innovation. What does all of that mean to you exactly? Like, is it just a kind of a facade to sort of prop up the idea that, this is kind of a conspiracy, kind of fake? I'm interested to see how, like, if there's all these industries and private companies spending millions and millions of dollars working on this technology to send satellites and equipment up into orbit, why exist? Why even have this much intricate exposure to, I guess, information and development? Like, how does that kind of fit in?
That is, when I first started looking into questioning and being a skeptic, being a globe skeptic, that was a big thing. It's like, well, what do you do with all of this, all the rockets that are being launched every week? And what do you do with all the space agencies from different countries? And what about all the satellite engineers? And what about all the this? And it is persuasive not on the merit of its evidence. Hang on a second. Yeah, what's up? What? Hang on a second. Somebody needs some. Okay. All right.
You're fine.
Yeah, sorry. I don't think everybody likes to put their face on the internet. So it's a lot. It's a mountain of things, but I don't think it's persuasive because it's scientific evidence, it's repeatable, it's experimental. That's persuasive, like in a peer pressure, social pressure kind of way. That's like, well, look, there's all these people working on things. No way it's flat. So I'm not immediately convinced by that. I don't just say, look, a bunch of people are working on stuff. That's definitely proof, because when I take my P1000 super zoom camera out to do long distance observations over the water, and I see buildings 13.8 miles away that, according to the official globe curve calculator numbers, are supposed to be hidden by 80 feet, and I can see basically everything from top to bottom, I'm like, peer pressure, personal experiments in science. Personal experiments in science take a giant shit on the globe model. Peer pressure says believe in the globe because YouTube will promote you and you get more clicks that way. So I am not persuaded by peer pressure. I am not persuaded by, well, look at all these people working on shit. There's no way that they got it wrong. So that's what I say about that, and I'll take it one step further for you. We've been believing we live on a spinning space ball for 2,500 years. This is what the official history says. We started believing we lived on a spinning space ball thanks to Pythagoras. He's the guy who's often credited with having conceived of this idea that we live in a sphere. And according to one Wikipedia article, which could have been hacked and faked, but this is what it said. It said that Pythagoras, because at the time they were debating, Homer thought it was flat, a flat disk. Pythagoras thought it was a sphere. And apparently, according to this Wikipedia entry, assuming it's legit, Pythagoras said we live on a sphere, and his reasoning was, well, the gods are perfect, and if they're going to make us live on anything, they're going to choose a perfect shape. And Pythagoras loved spheres, and he thought that the perfect shape was a sphere. So he said that's why we live on a sphere. Now we've been thinking that we live on a sphere for 2,500 years. I like to call it an ancient presupposition. Pythagoras is not given credit for having proved we live on a sphere. That's Aristotle a few hundred years later. Aristotle is given credit for having proven we live in a sphere because he had his 4 proofs, one of them being ships disappearing bottom up. Though apparently I can never find the actual original document saying that he believed that. So now some people think he never said it. But National Geographic, when they tried to do a hit piece on Flat Earth, they actually said Aristotle said ships disappear bottom up, which is a complete hoax. By the way, things disappear bottom up due to the angular resolution limit of your eye or the viewing instrument you're using, camera, for example. They don't disappear bottom up because you're going over a curvature. That's been utterly debunked and smashed to pieces.
Has it?
Sorry?
Has it?
Absolutely wrecked.
How?
Okay, so ships disappearing bottom up. Go-to thing, but Bob the science, not Bob, the fucking science guy. Bill Nye the science. Yeah, there's a globe guy. There's a globe troll on YouTube called Bob the science guy. No. Yeah, his name is Bill Nye the science guy, and his little kids show said ships disappearing bottom up proves we live on a spinning space ball. But that's been utterly wrecked to pieces.
But why? I'm actually interested to hear what...
Okay, well, the first reason, I will share my screen for you, and I'll show you. First reason, anything disappearing bottom up. Ships, buildings, whatever. Just things disappearing bottom up because they're allegedly going over the curvature in the distance. That's been torn to pieces. I personally witnessed it. It was an incredible day. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so this is a personal observation I did out here in Miami. Black Point Park and Marina. I used the P1000 super zoom camera, and I zoomed in on one fine morning, and this is what I saw. What you're seeing here is 13.8 miles away, according to the official globe curve calculations. This is supposed to be hidden by around 80 feet. Actually, no, this is further away. This is 14.5 miles away. It's supposed to be hidden by I think around 90 feet. So I zoomed in, and this is what I captured. This is Key Biscayne, by the way. You might be familiar with Key Biscayne since you live around here.
Sort of. Still new to the area.
Key Biscayne, there it is. It's a little bit shaky here. Let me go forward a little bit. Here's a lighthouse. This is called Cape Florida Lighthouse. This was completely visible, including the little trees around its base. Not supposed to be there. Supposed to be hidden by 80 feet, and it was there. And I'll tell you in a moment what the official Glober explanation is, because I'll tell you what their arguments are. Here's what it looks like on Google Maps, by the way, just to rub it in here. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Wait. Let me go here. So yeah, this is just me kind of going over it on Google Maps. It's a map. It's a model, and models are not reality. The map is not the territory. That's the old phrase. So that's what that lighthouse looks like on Google Maps, and this is what it looks like on my camera. Um, Even down to the little patch of rocks that extend out from the coastline are visible. Um, so that's the lighthouse, and then this here is the towers of Key Biscayne condominiums, and you got some trees like that,
It seems like that whole area is just short of the horizon line. At least what it looks like the horizon line. When you're looking towards the perspective where you're seeing the lighthouse
on Google Maps, or you mean
on your video
the actual footage. Okay, let's take a look, because that the horizon is what causes things to vanish, according to the world model.
And you have some sort of light reflection, mainly from the heat waves generated, especially because the water's reflecting.
Yep, that's the go-to Glober excuse for these observations. That's shit on the globe. It's refraction. That's what they say. Yeah, that's and fair enough. I don't deny
refraction and thermodynamics.
Oh, I don't deny refraction exists. It's absolutely real. It can be tested, repeated. But the point is, if Aristotle said that ships disappearing bottom up is a slam dunk proof we live on a sphere, and then sometimes the light can just bend upwards and then it looks flat, well, it ain't slam dunk proof anymore. Now you need to know the weather conditions of the day. You need to know how much refraction there was. You need to, it's just so many, and that's what I've come to realize, because I've done many observations. I've gone out there dozens of times to look and see what I capture. And what I've come to the conclusion is only a complete retard, not you, I just mean like in general, the globe, the people, only a complete retard would point to something 20 miles away on the horizon and be like, that little thing with all the blurriness and the refraction?
That's actually what I'm curious about. Is what if
live on a sphere? It's the only person who would ever point 20 miles away in murky refraction, all this stuff, to prove we live in a sphere is somebody who knows they have no evidence and they want you to look at something 20 miles away that you can barely see. I've come to the conclusion that it's by design. Sorry, go
ahead. So I was just going to say, I'd be interested to see what would happen if you tried to film something that was like, you said that was like, what, 14 miles?
Yes, 14 miles. It's supposed to be hidden by 80 feet of geometric Earth curve.
I'm not sure what the equation is for that, but I'm curious to see what would happen if you did something 20 miles or even 30 miles, if you'd be able to see that.
Oh, I have that. If you would like to see some. In fact, in this very footage, I panned across. Oh, wait, it's actually same day, separate video. And I literally panned across I can see buildings in North Miami Beach from where I was, 25 miles away. Now, I will be fair, when they got really far away, you started to notice some obvious obstruction from the bottom. Now, there's a couple problems with that. Number one, when I go out to capture this footage, almost every day was something different. This was an exception. And the Globers like to say that this day that I went out, where it looked completely flat and you can see everything when 80 feet is supposed to be missing, they say, oh, well, what do you think's more likely? The thing you see once in a blue moon that's rare, or the thing you see regularly? And I say, when it comes to this, the atmosphere is a real thing. It's an obstructing, warping, refracting medium that distorts what you see 20 miles away.
Relay scattering, all that stuff.
Everything. All these things. Light going so much crazy. That's why every time I go out there, I see something new. So, if anything, the thing that would be rare, the thing that happens once in a blue moon, would be to see it as it is. Because whenever you go out there, more often than not, if it's a warping, crazy medium with all these variables taking place, you're probably not going to see the world for what it actually looks like. It's going to be distorted. And so, yes, I would say that if we ever look 20 miles, 15, 20 miles, and we see the world for what it is, that would be a rare occurrence. And indeed, This only happened to me twice, these observations.
Probably due to weather, different like weather patterns,
Well,
densities, and fog and all that stuff.
my current understanding is that one of the most important variables is when the temperature of the water is around the same as the temperature of the air above the water. And from my understanding is that minimizes refraction. And that's exactly what happened that morning. And not only that, but the water was so flat and calm. I mean, I've gone out where there's so many waves, it's choppy. Here, let me get some footage of one of the times I zoomed out where like the bottom third of the building was missing so you can see it. Oh wow, 381 people watching. That's not too bad. Still shadow banned, but not bad. P1000 debunks ships disappearing bottom up. There it is. Okay, so here we got some stuff. Okay, so this, let me zoom out for you. So as you can see, this is roughly the same exact position. You got this little thing that's in the foreground, and then I zoom in. You can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I zoom in. I'm basically right in the same spot. You know, maybe within like 20 meters left to right where I'm standing. Same exact buildings. You can probably recognize the condominiums there.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the trees on the bottom? You know, let me just go back to the other one real quick. And so you can really just get a quick comparison of the difference from one day to the next. It's stunning.
You probably have tide difference as well.
Tide? Yep, absolutely. The tide changed from one day to the next. Absolutely. It was different every day. So this is on the super flat day. You got a giant wall of trees here, which matches with Google Earth right here. You know, there's a big wall of trees for like a couple miles in front between me and the buildings. And then we have this day. Just go forward a second. We have this day, and then we have this day. Shit, where are the trees? Fuck. Where are the trees at? Where are the bottoms of the building? Oh, there must be sinking. We live in a sphere, right? Slam dunk, boom. Aristotle proved it. Though I don't know if he knew refraction existed back then. But let's not talk about that. And so there it is. So Globers would be like, boom, we live on a sphere. Look, you can't see the bottom. But this is hard to use as conclusive proof when one day I go out and I can see everything, and then other days I go out and I can't see everything.
Yeah, I'm not sure which variables are really to blame or are at play. So it's hard for me to even draw a conclusion off this, but it is fascinating. Okay, wait, hold on. You can see something interesting right here. You see, like, the bottom levels of the building there. You can kind of see the stories are compressed.
Oh, yeah. Sharp eye, sir. Sharp eye. That's a massive factor, my friend.
But the thing is that if it's compressed to the point you should be able to sort of see ground if it were level, possibly. That's one thing I see. This is my first time looking at anything like this, so I couldn't, like, I could formulate an idea, but
yeah.
The question, if there's more space there, you should at least see treetops or mangroves or whatever that is, but yet it's secluded.
Well, this is a 12-story building, so if we count the balconies here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then
you can sort of see the ninth there in the bottom.
Maybe you can make it out, but it's really hard to see at that point because it meets the apparent water line here. But we're reaching 8 or 9, so that gives us about 3, maybe 4 floors left that are quote missing. But then again, look how compressed a balcony gets by the time it's here. I really have to wonder, shit. I mean, it's so thin that if it's, and the thing is, it seems to happen at like an exponential rate. Like it gets more thin faster the more you get to the bottom. Like it happens almost exponentially.
Right.
So I have to wonder if at that rate, by the time you're getting to balcony to the 3rd floor, to the 1st floor, they might be so compressed that they either aren't visible or they're not enough pixels to register in the camera, or they basically just start to merge with the other pixels here at the apparent water line. But
so what's clear is that the light is bending and compressing, but the thing that's like questioning me is that below the horizon line, I would assume, and this is just an assumption, that it would well, I mean, you couldn't even. I would assume that it would basically go back to regular refraction. So it would essentially be the inverse on the bottom. So it would go from compressed back to the natural stack, the way that the levels were originally, the way they exist in reality. It's hard. It's hard. I feel like at this point we're just kind of speculating.
No, there is a lot of speculation, but I guess my point is that takes a shit on the globe, because you guys use that for 2,000 plus years as slam dunk proof we live on a globe. And then look at all the variables.
Convinced. I mean, that is interesting, and I'd like to find out like what are the phenomena that. But it doesn't make me think that it's flat.
Well, it's not about thinking that it's flat. It's about taking a giant shit on the proof that we live on a sphere.
Well, okay.
That's all it is. I'm not going to say this proves that the Earth is flat. In fact, if anything, it proves that long-distance observations have so many variables at play that you probably can't even come to a conclusion based on it. And that's not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to say this proves the Earth is flat. I mean, I did put it in the title. Yeah. I did put it in the title just to troll the Globers who think.
Well, you need to get that audience attraction, so that's understandable.
Well, but it's really about shitting on the Globers who think that a ship disappearing bottom up is slam dunk proof we live on a sphere. And that's what it's about, and that's what I
There are better examples. Sorry? Here, let me ask you something. There are better examples, but let me ask you something. So, if you were to watch like a live stream from the International Space Station, what is your opinion on what that is?
So again, you're appealing to peer pressure.
Is it though?
It absolutely is peer pressure.
Why is that peer pressure?
Because it's almost like saying, well, what about the thing that none of us can test or verify or repeat for ourselves that proves we live on a sphere? When I have real-world, repeatable, scientific, repeatable, experimental, verifiable things that I can do for myself to test that shits on one of your hallmark proofs we live on a spinning space sphere, things disappearing bottom up. So I'm not impressed by peer pressure, and that's what that is.
Well, again, the horizon line. I mean, we were just looking at it. Like I'm not convinced. Like I'm not that I'm this is all weight on whether you can convince me or not. But just even as a skeptic, that doesn't sort of point towards any sort of slam dunk thing. I
didn't say it did. I said it shits on Globers.
Or shits on it. Yeah.
It shits on Globers who think it's a slam dunk proof.
Well, I would say that's I guess that's a decent point of contention. But again, I feel like you could just explain that as, I mean, you can see it compressing there. It'd probably reverse the same way under there. Look, I don't know exactly the physics of how light operates, but as far as that image shows, it's concordant to what people say is the buildings would disappear from the bottom up.
Right, but disappearing, why? Could it be disappearing because it's compressing?
Well, again, the compression would have to do with the water level. So, man, I have my 3D application open, but I don't. It takes a while to actually build stuff in this thing, so I don't think I can do anything concise.
Well, I know Globers love to pull out models when they can't explain reality. They love to pull out the simulations.
Well, this is just a program where I do visual effects and stuff, and I might not actually use this. Well, what I wanted to talk about was so again, I have sort of a background in visual effects and everything, and visual effects are largely based off of physically based. Like when you do anatomy for creature design, it has to be based off of something that you see in real life. A lot of people use reference photos with like birds or reptiles, different sort of amphibious creatures and all that stuff. All that's inspiration. You can't make good visual effects without having something that's like physically based. So light is one of the things that we know very, very, very well, and we can simulate it very accurately. We have a bunch of different software pieces from people like Octane, Mental Ray, Arnold, V-Ray. I personally use V-Ray. And I had this problem I was trying to do. I was trying to create like a space like a space scene, and I wanted to have some cool ships flying and everything, and there was something just off about the atmosphere. As an artist, you're trying to recreate what's reality, and you could argue it's not reality and all stuff, but I'll just continue with my tangent. Mm-hmm. So when I'm trying to create this, there's a noticeable effect. You see it during sunsets when the atmosphere turns orange, then red, then purple, then black, essentially. Now, that is a phenomenon called Rayleigh scattering, and I've had to do a lot of research to find out what the physics are for that, so I can mimic that in CG. I wouldn't have known to look for that if it weren't a real-life occurrence. So, essentially, my argument here is with atmospheric occlusion, with the footage, like actual hard footage, live streams from the International Space Station where you can see Aurora Borealis. Actually, that's a good point. Aurora Borealis. You're familiar with that effect, the phenomenon, right?
Yeah, I've heard of it, yes.
The northern lights, the southern lights.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
The idea of why that occurs is basically has to do with the electromagnetic sphere that surrounds the Earth that essentially protects us from gamma, X-ray radiation, and all that stuff that's coming from the sun.
Yeah, that's the theory. Is.
That happens at the poles, according to the heliocentric model. That happens at the poles. It doesn't happen anywhere else. And you can be on the ground and fly to Greenland and observe them yourself. And people have done that. So I'm wondering how you substantiate that across, alongside a flat Earth model. Because one thing, sorry, I don't mean to ask you a question and then go off on a tangent, but this is important. One thing that I understand, I'll use the camera here. So if the Earth is flat, for example, I've seen a model where the Earth is round and then there is essentially this kind of like rock structure under it, and everything kind of lays flat, like this.
You're talking about the flat Earth model.
A flat Earth model.
Yeah, I mean the only flat Earth model that has rocks underneath it is the cartoon, just mainstream media shitting on flat Earth. No flat earther actually thinks that there's a rock structure on the bottom, and no one knows what's there. A lot of them think that it's a dome. Some people think it's a looping simulation. So a lot of them don't
simulation is at least that is at least tangible.
Oh yes, the simulation theory is tangible, but the concept that we live on a flat simulation, the way most simulations are made on a flat map, that's absurd. Our entire reality being a matrix illusion, I like that one. The idea that the matrix simulation is a flat map, like all fucking video games pretty much are flat maps, you're crazy, flat earther.
I think that's a technological limitation, because if you were trying to simulate a sphere, that would take a lot of processing power. Well, at least a sphere the size of the Earth. That's more just for simplicity's sake.
Well, that might be simplicity's sake, or it might be that Skyrim ain't big enough to justify a sphere,
Well, that's the case as well.
Yeah. It might not be big enough to justify a sphere, but my point is, if most simulations are flat, and you think simulation theory is possible, then if anything, the burden of proof is on you, because most simulations are flat.
Well, what are the variables
you're
that make
the
them
one
flat?
pulling out this weird simulation where it's a sphere. That's an exception to the rule, if anything.
Let me backtrack a little bit, because I did have a point to what I was saying earlier. So, oh shit, I lost it. Damn.
Aurora Borealis.
Oh yeah. So, electromagnetic phenomenon, and so I know you mentioned the moon. Like when I brought up the moon and the spherical moon, your point of contention was essentially that, like you brought up the sort of peculiar chance that the Earth, or no, sorry, not the Earth, that the moon is the same sort of circumference visibly to the naked eye as the sun is in the sky. But what about, say for example, I've had a high-powered telescope. I've seen visibly the moons of Jupiter, as well as Jupiter itself, Saturn, Venus, Mars. What are those then? Are those other flat objects? Are they all directed towards us? I mean, are they literally facing us, and they're all like, if they're orbiting at all, are they just in a perfect orbit that they're facing us and they're spherical the entire time?
Well, that's what the moon is allegedly doing, according to you guys. It's tidally locked, so we only see one side, no matter where you are in the sphere. So
that's actually not true. The Earth, it does rotate at a certain degree. You will see different sides of the moon. There is a dark side of the moon, because just from the circular, the way that the orbit is, so the moon spins very slow.
Are you saying that the moon is not tidally locked?
No, the moon is tidally locked.
Okay, you're saying it's tidally. You're just saying there might be like slight.
But there are variances, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
I've taken photographs of it myself, so I mean I've seen the difference between different months.
Okay.
So like I'm just like I don't know how to square that. Like other planets that I've seen with my own naked eye, I don't have video of it. I can't substantiate that with evidence right now. But there are they are spheres, and of course, there's sort of crescents sometimes, depending on where the sun is, or where they are in relation to the sun. But I mean, they're very visibly round.
Okay, so you see some little tiny specks of light in the sky, and you think that proves we live on a sphere. I do long distance observations where there's supposed to be Earth curve, and sometimes you can see everything. I have my observations too, and they contradict the sphere.
Well, I guess if you sort of, I mean, that's kind of glazing over. You could, like I said, you could make an argument that it is the actual phenomenon of the horizon line disappearing from the bottom up. I mean, that's what we saw in that second part of the video. I don't know how to explain. Like, I will honestly try to explain, if it is flat, why it would be flat. I don't see how, at least my understanding of physics work, for the building to disappear from the bottom up and say that is a phenomenon, at least an atmospheric phenomenon, that negates. You
think the only explanation for something disappearing bottom up, you think the only explanation is Earth curve?
No. I even said, for example, that atmospheric conditions can vary the visibility, but I don't think it's to any degree that would completely, like, you'll still see, even if it's a fraction of what you saw in that second part of the footage there, it'll still disappear from the bottom up. It's just a matter of distance. Like, that's why I was saying, if you took a video of something that's 20, 30 miles away...
It sounds like you're moving the globe post, is what it sounds like. Because you have to understand, bro, that according to your numbers, okay, there's a certain amount of obstruction that takes place over a certain number of miles or kilometers, whatever fucking metric system somebody wants to use. Okay, at 13.8 miles, according to your numbers, your side, the globe side, the consensus, there should have been 80 feet missing. First of all, I don't even think there was a day where there was 80 feet missing, but there definitely was a day where there was like nothing missing.
I'm unaware of what the concrete number is, and I would assume that's an average based on the differences.
I'll pull it up for you just so you can see it, just so you can check it out, because it's kind of important.
All right.
Kind of an important number here.
Okay, all right.
DEBUNK. Yeah, this is one. There's a few of them, but this is one of them. And you can see my screen, right?
Yep.
13.8 miles with a viewer height of 6 feet. This is all with presuppositions about potential refraction in the environment. The pure geometric results a hidden amount of 77.78 feet. Now, if you don't trust this guy, then you don't trust a top-tier globe defender / flat earth debunker, which is fine.
That's probably a reduction from the average. That's the thing, is that with different weather systems or weather patterns or atmospheric conditions, that will likely vary.
Of course, and then if anything, that's my point. But yes, every day is different. You can come up with a standard refraction adjustment, but apparently it looks like it's based on 7/6 the radius. And I'm not sure if that's the radius of the Earth, so I'd have to ask, where did you get the R number from? And there's a great clip of the creator of this website getting destroyed by a flat earther when he asked him, where's your proof of Earth's radius? That was fantastic. Honestly, I get the feeling that you're not, like, you did say, okay, that's interesting, but I feel like you're not giving credit to the amount of uncertainty and ambiguity taking place when it comes to a long distance observation. I don't feel like you're really giving credit. I think you're kind of clinging, because you know how important that this is to the globe model. This is pretty foundational stuff. This is, in terms of proof, disappearing bottom up is very, very crucial. So
that's one aspect, yeah.
So look, I mean, I don't want to Because I think you were going to say something. So, I mean, was there a point you were going to get to? Because I don't know if I cut you off or whatever.
I don't know.
Okay. Anyways, well,
I forget.
yeah, it's all good. It's all good. So again, look, the compression, I've captured it many times on camera. Okay, here's one thing I want to ask you. Before I brought this up, I mean, did it ever occur to you that a long distance observation could be hindered by so many variables?
Oh, I would assume, yeah.
You would assume, yeah. But did it ever occur to you that when you thought in your mind that things disappearing bottom up in the distance is a proof of the sphere, did you ever think, but damn, what about all that refraction and scattering and this and the warping and all that? Did that ever occur? Because I mean,
I never made the correlation between
Right.
that being a proof of it being a globe. I just thought it was an interesting phenomenon. I mean, it is of course representative of the curve of the Earth, but I never really gave it much more credence than as like an interesting observation.
okay, so that's not like a cherished thing for you when it comes to
Not really.
Not
Like
really.
there's just so much more that could be talked
Okay.
about.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Mainly just the technological aspects of where we've come, like integrated circuits. I mean, like we have like private industries that have been developing, and not only private industries, but government contracted industries. Like, I mean, the military, for example. I mean, I know that you're no fan of the military-industrial complex, but these guys spend millions and millions of dollars to pursue tech, and just kind of equip their arsenal with the best and most efficient weapons capable. I mean, even ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Those are essentially suborbital rockets. I mean, they're capable of achieving orbit. I mean, they're orbital class rockets, but I mean, all these things and nuclear tests. Like, I don't think you're going to deny that nuclear weapons are a thing, or that we have. I don't know. Do you think that we have ICBMs, that they're functional, that we
I
do
don't
have?
know much about that topic. I've heard about it, but I don't really know much about it.
Okay.
I don't really have an opinion. I don't really give a crap, honestly. Whether they're real or not, I don't care.
Okay. Well, I feel like it's a good thing to talk about because in terms of our nation's interest, you know, the more I guess tyrannical authoritarian aspect of it being the military-industrial complex, they're essentially, you know, at odds with other nations that have the same kind of weapons capabilities. I mean, you know, it's pretty obvious that us and Russia have had tensions forever, especially during the Cold War. But the thing is that all this tech has been developed. Like, why use kerosene and liquid oxygen instead of methane and methyl ketones? Why have we moved past the F1 engine? Why did it have certain resonance frequency? Like, it basically ripped the engine apart. Why did they have to do rapid prototyping? Like, I have a feeling that this will go back to the whole peer pressure, a consensus argument. But I just feel like that doesn't hold up to snuff when, I mean, we really have tangible like equations. Like, for example, if I wanted to build a rocket system right now, there are a few materials that I could put together that could at least give me solid fuel. I could build a cylindrical device with a cone. I could put Arduinos in it to give it a basic guidance system, and then see how far it could go. Like, the equations exist, the math exists. Like, the fact that we know of the Oberth effect, which is essentially that if you're in orbit, you want to do a injection burn, which is essentially igniting the engine and then giving yourself thrust.
Dude, are you just trying to like use big sounding words to prove the sphere? Is that what you're doing?
Well, these big sounding words actually mean something. Like,
Well,
so,
no one denies they mean something, but I mean, give me some
So,
proof. Give me something.
I'll give you an example. So the idea with the Apollo 11 command module and the lunar module. So they have two stages that get them up into orbit. You have the F1 engines, the 5 F1 engines that get them up to about, I don't even know. I don't know the actual number. The second stage, 5 J2 engines, and then basically that decouples, and then they have essentially the lunar injection module, which is this rocket, the single J2 rocket in the back, the lunar module that's encapsulated in a fairing, and then the command module that's in the front. They have to do an injection burn at what's called perigee. Perigee is essentially, you have perigee and apogee. They're two anchor points of an orbit. Jesus Christ, my armpits are sweaty. So you have the circular orbit, and you have...
Well, there's a perigee and an apogee with the moon as well. And if you didn't know that, the moon has a perigee and an apogee throughout the year. Sometimes it's a little bit closer, sometimes...
Every object
You've heard
that
about
has
that. You've heard about
has
that,
a
right?
perigee and apogee.
Yeah.
Those are the anchor points of their orbit.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, according to the heliocentric model, right? Yes.
according to the heliocentric model.
Right.
So it's more efficient to burn at perigee or apogee because you save more fuel, thus giving you more momentum. So you'll do like a small burn at apogee, and then you'll wait until you recircularize and do another burn. That way you're not using delta V, which is essentially thrust in meters per second, because you have a finite amount of fuel. You want to make sure that it's used as efficiently as possible. Why do we even know that that's a phenomenon? Why do we even know that we have to have phenolic impregnated carbon ablators? I don't mean to throw that at, but that's basically a resin impregnated carbon disc that's essentially constructed to fit on the bottom of the capsule to ablate away material as it hits the atmosphere.
It seems to me like you can't possibly believe that millions of people, well, I don't know how many rocket, scientists and technicians there have been. Let's just say hundreds of thousands. How many do you think there have been working in the rocket field?
Number. At least 100,000 is a good number, at least from the 60s till today.
Okay, so let's go with it generous. Seems to me like your main thing, what you're basically saying is like, there's no way hundreds of thousands of people would put all this time, money, energy, thought into something that doesn't exist. And then you can't believe that all this technology would exist if the Earth wasn't a sphere.
I don't believe the government is competent enough to fake something like that at the scale that they're doing.
It's not even a matter of competence because, I mean...
A lot of the schematics are available.
Okay, sorry. No, because I just thought of this. This is important. So wait, you don't think the government is competent, but you think NASA's competent enough to pioneer all this rocket technology?
Well, yeah.
NASA's the government.
I mean, they're the aerospace division of the government. They're funded directly by the government, but we also have private industry that's doing more than NASA is right now. Like their SLS rocket has been delayed many years
right,
so far.
So then it's not a matter of government incompetence hiding it, then, is it? Because there's private space.
I meant that in reference into like a sort of conspiracy that the government would have tried to fake this idea that they're innovating technologically towards advanced rocketry.
Sorry, what?
I'm saying that the government isn't competent enough to have all these resources to say that no, all this innovation that we've done to get to advanced rocketry is all false. It's all fabricated. It's just to make the public believe that we have done all these sort of technological marvels and we've achieved a moon landing, et cetera, et cetera.
It's part private, so it's not even necessarily just what the government is competent or not.
Well, right now it's part private.
Well, I mean, so what are you saying is private or not, man? Well, what is private? What isn't? You're saying there was no private. You're saying there was no private innovation contributing to what NASA was doing back in the '60s. I'm pretty sure there was some dude in a lab pioneering.
I feel like we're getting a little bit muddied. I might have
muddied, but you're the one who started bringing up big words and saying I can't possibly believe people would invest all this time, money, and energy and technology if it wasn't for actually something that exists. I mean, this is the critical point because that was your only argument was, rocket science. Boom, we live on a sphere. That's what it seemed like your main argument was.
Well, my point is that, well, I mean, back to what I was saying is that I don't think the government is competent enough to kind of fake all this stuff and it not be real. That's my main point. Private companies were contracted by the government to build the second stage of the Saturn V. The F1 engines. Like Rocketdyne was the company that built the F1 engine, and they had many hurdles to overcome engineering that thing to make it work properly. Likewise with the second stage, because of the oxidation and the oxidizer tank, and then the fuel tank.
Is it possible for hundreds or thousands of people to work on something that's ultimately a fraud?
I wouldn't know.
Look at Theranos. That company turned out to be it completely imploded. The female owner of the thing was basically, she's like going to prison now and shit. And it was a bunch of scientists like researching and pioneering and innovating some new blood, injection thing for your finger. It's going to pioneer all technology. And it turns out the whole thing was basically a joke. It was crap technology. It was a complete waste of time and money. But all these people, there were people investing in it. There were people working on it, people innovating on it. And now look, the lady who's in charge is going to prison for it.
But there have been
People,
public
people
failures
can
on
accumulate
NASA.
their people can
Theranos
accumulate
never publicly
people,
admitted that they weren't able to create the machine.
People can accumulate time and energy and resources into things that ultimately are bullshit. I mean, it's
But how
not
many people
impossible.
worked on Theranos?
Thousands probably.
But it's not hundreds of thousands.
Oh, so we're moving the goalpost again. You know, 15 miles ain't enough.
Well, no,
We gotta go to 20. We gotta go to 20 miles. We got to go to 20 miles. Now 15.
All right, look, hey, that's fair.
Even though at 15 miles, there's already supposed to be obstruction from the bottom up, according to the official.
But again, publicly, there was no information that the Theranos wasn't a company that that they were advertising something that wasn't actually true. You could see publicly the failures of developing, say, the Atlas V rocket that magnificently exploded on the launch pad. Like, I don't know if they want to just blow $80 million on a cylindrical piece of metal with a bunch of explosives strapped onto it. Like,
it's tax money.
It is the government.
Money. It's tax money. Exactly. It's tax money. We don't have a say in whether we pay it. So fuck them. They want to waste money.
All right. How about this, for example?
The more money they waste, the more they're generating, the more they're doing, the more rockets they blow up, the more they need to build. You know, I heard it the other day. Some Jeranism said that he basically says NASA is just a jobs program. It's a government jobs program. That's what space is. It's a government jobs program.
But NASA isn't the only people developing aerospace technology right now. You
they're
have
not the
Boeing,
only,
you have
but they were-
Blue
they-
Origin, you have SpaceX, you
You're
have
right.
Rocket Lab.
You're right, but it's a jobs
Even
program.
India's space program is actually picking up some pace right now. They managed to launch a rocket a couple days ago.
Well,
It was
you're
capable
right.
of geostationary orbit.
And a lot of these private companies get funding. They got stakeholders. They got
Yeah, they do.
big-ass wealthy
And
dudes.
the
who
big
give
money
them
contracts are for militaries.
Well, there you go. But yeah, no. I mean, look, this personal incredulity argument where you can't possibly imagine people wasting time and money on things. You know how many ventures are initiated and just fail, and then nothing comes of it.
I'm very aware.
Well, there you go. But I mean, that's a story of everything. And when you're getting paid money by the government by force via taxes, and no one can pay, and you don't have a choice whether you can pay or not.
But what do you think tells you? Like, what do you think the GPS? How do you think the GPS on your phone knows exactly where you are?
A global presupposition system? Yeah.
That's funny. That's admittedly funny.
The global that's what I call it. The global presupposition system helps me navigate around my flat reality. I mean, I don't see curvature. I never feel like down changes direction. On your model, down changes direction depending on what part of the sphere you're on. I don't see that ever happening. I don't feel that ever happening. The Earth is obviously and observably flat everywhere I go, every time I go, no matter where I go.
Hey, you know what? Me too.
Exactly.
It is flat everywhere I go.
Exactly, but that's my point. Is you're like, well, how does a GPS work? That must prove a sphere. It's like, no, the GPS is a flat map.
Sphere is because you need a sophisticated array of satellites that are communicating with each other at specific polar orbits. They need to be done in a very precise way to have those telecommunications work. I'm talking about precision engineering. That's mainly my gripe.
That's great, man. That's great that you have low quality evidence that none of us can verify or repeat for ourselves.
A lot of the stuff is
I can go out and see if things are disappearing bottom up in the distance, but I can't find out what the hell these satellites are allegedly doing.
Well, something you could observe yourself. Why does a rocket take off vertically and then turn sideways?
Because that's what they tell the rocket to do.
Where does the rocket go?
Go anywhere. Eventually it goes so far away that you can't see it. So that's pretty useful if you want to get rid of the fucking thing.
If you have a ham radio or any like rudimentary radar
device. Here's the thing, bro. Before rocket technology, before all the big fancy words started using on me, before all that stuff, long before that, in fact, 2,500 years before all the fancy words, we already knew we lived on a sphere because ships disappearing bottom up. So I want to know how you guys even had the basis to stand on when you didn't have rockets, when you didn't have $50 million a day, when you didn't have Aurora Borealis, and you didn't have the this rocket system and the that and all these things. Before that, you guys knew you lived on a sphere because you saw ship disappearing bottom up. That was one of the key proofs for thousands of years, literally.
I'm pretty sure the Greeks had observatories, didn't they?
Well, they might have had it at observatories, but as far as every time I ever see anybody talk about what the Greeks did, there's a handful of key proofs. Ships disappearing bottom up is top three. There's Eratosthenes' experiment with the sticks and the wells and the shadows. Have you ever heard of that one?
I don't think so.
That one allegedly proved, well, it didn't prove we live in a sphere. He presupposed it, but he did allegedly prove the radius. And of course, that one's been debunked. In fact, Neil deGrasse Tyson is also on video helping us debunk that one, but I won't go there. My point is this, man. Like, I understand it's very useful to appeal to what about all the stuff NASA's doing, and what about all the rockets, and what about all the picture from space. But before you guys had any of that, when it was just cave people, Flintstones people from thousands of years ago, all you guys had was ships disappearing bottom up. All you guys had was, well, look, the eclipse and the shadow of the eclipse only works if it's all spherical. That's it. A handful of rudimentary, basic Flintstones observations. And when we put them under scrutiny in modern times, like watching things disappear bottom up in the distance, guess what? Refraction bends the light sometimes, and according to you guys, anyways. And then you can see things that aren't supposed to be there. It's a hologram. That building's not really there. It's a refracted hologram. It doesn't actually exist, dude. But you better do 20 miles because 15 is not enough for me. So,
no, that's an example. It's just like if you wanted to test that theory even further, essentially a 30, 40, 50 mile away object would also be visible to your camera, wouldn't it? Would it not?
No, and let's get into that now. No, it wouldn't.
Ah, shit, here we go.
Hey, I want to say thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate the conversation.
Hey, no problem. It's actually pretty fun.
Yeah, I know we've been getting a little heated sometimes, but it's all in good spirit, man.
It is. It really is.
I really appreciate it. This is fun stuff. So let me just show this to you because this is, again, when it comes to me finally realizing and coming to the conclusion that there's no way we live on a spinning space ball, this was one of the crucial ones. And I'm going to send you a link to this because, you know, you seem like a smart guy and you seem to like technical, smart stuff. And this is a video that's really technical, and I think you'll really enjoy it. The guy's sharp as a razor, and he's a flat earther, and I really think you should look at it. I'm going to put it in the chat here real quick for everybody. Everyone watch this. Oh, and subscribe.
And I can't wait to look back on the comments.
I'm sure there'll be some globe trolls in here, so don't worry about it.
Well, this cuck.
Globe cucks.
Oh man.
Okay, so there is a working there is an opinion out there that things can disappear bottom up, not because of curvature, but because of the nature of our eyes, the nature of a camera, and just the physics of light. So what I will basically present to you is a very simple thing. So a bunch of flat earthers started doing something a few months ago. They would go to like a Walmart or like a big office building, and then they would find a big long hallway. And what they would do is they would put a flashlight on the floor at one end of the hallway, and then they would walk like 400 feet to the other side of the hallway, and they would have a camera in their hand, and they would turn the camera around and point it at the flashlight all the way at the other side on the floor, and they'd start to lower the camera down.
You have a problem there.
Okay, go ahead.
Buildings, by code, have to be level throughout its entire structure. By code, like you can't have a building isn't going to be susceptible to the curvature of the Earth.
A building is not going to be susceptible to the curvature of the Earth?
Maybe from tectonic shift eventually over time, but when it's built and constructed, the concrete pad that's initially at the base floor has to be perfectly level. Not to a degree of variation, but it has to be level.
Right. So you're basically what you're saying is that like level wouldn't it wouldn't suggest the curve of the Earth. Is that what you're saying?
Essentially, because the building, if they're good contractors, it'll be flat all the way. I'm just saying that it might not be the best experiment to run. I don't know if it's going to actually give you the information that you want.
Right, because level is flat, right?
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's curved, according to your model.
Level is, God damn it, man. By construction standards, you have to have a footprint that is level and square. Otherwise, everything you put on top of it is fucked.
Level is perpendicular to the center of the Earth on your model. Level is
No,
curved.
level is straight. Like level is flat. Like
No, it's not, dude. And the top tier glove defenders will kill you for saying that.
okay, all right. Well, they're probably breaking up
level
semantics.
level
Oh,
is
well,
not
level
flat.
means this when you're
No,
really
no,
supposed
this
to say
is
flat
this
surface.
is no,
All right,
this
here.
is all that matters. This is what it comes down to when you get deep enough.
Oh,
Level
God.
is
Here we go.
curved on your spinning space ball.
I think you're just. I think it's just semantics on the definition of level at this point. But what I mean is that okay.
Man,
All right. Hold on.
dude,
Let me
sorry,
explain then.
man.
If you were to measure the surface of like say that this is 400 feet, right? At the concrete block here, this has to be a perfect 90-degree angle, and that angle has to translate across completely to meet another perfectly 90-degree angle. You know, this is the side of the block, this is the top, and that surface right there essentially has to be flat. Not according to like a even see the thing is that even at that scale, it would almost be like what's the fuck?
Wait. Why would you want it to be flat? If it's flat, then if it's a perfectly flat surface, then down is changing direction underneath your feet on a spinning spaceball model.
Maybe by like a 10,000th of a degree.
Right. Well, you're
Because
right. And it would probably be imperceptible. But here's what I will say: over 400 feet, even if you made, let's say the floor was just, you're going one tile at a time, and you made sure that every tile, you put a spirit level on each tile to make sure that each tile, as you placed it in this straight line of 400 feet, each level you put on, you make sure each tile was level. On the spinning spaceball model, those tiles are actually going to curve if you make them all level one by one. It'll be a very probably imperceptible curve.
Yes,
but it'll still be a curve there. Level means curved on your model. It definitely doesn't mean flat. It means perpendicular to the center of the earth.
I mean, again, I think that's just a semantics about the definition of level.
But it's not semantics. It's foundational because, I mean, yes, it'll be imperceptible in 400 feet. So either way, it's kind of a wash, and whether it's curved or not, you won't even notice it. It's so imperceptible. But I just want you to know that the top tier globe defenders that I've heard of over the past few years will tell you level is not flat on the spinning spaceball.
That's news to me.
Yeah, well, that's what you have to swallow when you believe in this wild model. You have to.
That's the perception of what the definition is, or is that like the act? I don't know. Well, the only reason why I brought that up is because I
agree with you. I think level is flat. I agree.
For you, I was gonna say that wasn't gonna service your evidence to like claim that the test they did with the flashlight at the end of a 400-foot hallway on a building that's constructed to code. I don't think that's going to support your argument. That's all.
What was my argument? Because I don't think you knew what my argument was. Where was I going?
I was assuming you're going to say that there would be some noticeable curvature from the flashlight, that you would be able to see some sort of like occlusion coming from somewhere, or maybe.
No, actually, I wasn't going to argue that there should be curvature. I'm not even going in that direction. But what a lot of flat earthers were doing is they were simply saying. They were saying, yeah, you didn't let me finish. That's why this was going to be important.
My bad.
They weren't saying that when you lower the camera all the way down, you can still see the flashlight. Guess what was happening, bro?
What?
The flashlight disappears before the camera even hits the floor.
Okay.
Dozens of people have been doing this. Now, what the top tier globe defenders said, they had to come up with their excuse for why this was happening. So what they started saying was, the floor's uneven. Fair enough. I'm sure that when you really get down to the floor, it's not perfectly flat, even if it's level.
For a scientific basis, I don't think you would want to use a man-made object, or at least something with enough variable, depending on the contractor, that they would be able to produce a just perfectly flat surface. Okay, if you wanted to, man, see this. Maybe you are right. You need more funding.
First of all,
because I would say a good.
First of all, you said flat is level, and then now you're saying, well, they're not perfectly flat, which is fine. I just want to restate that. Is that what you're saying, that when a construction crew goes out and they professionally build, like you said, they're professional. They use the level. They have to make it flat, square. You're saying that it's not perfectly flat, correct? Is that what you're asserting now?
saying that contractors, whoever is doing the building, okay, they're by code, you're supposed to get everything as perfect as possible. Now, from foundation settling, like you will always have variabilities. Like when they're building stadiums, when they're building casinos, when they're doing anything, you're going to have a variability. That's just the nature of the job. Things are going to shift, so you have to accommodate for that. I'm just saying that a man-made, like if you're on like second, third, fourth story of a building and you're trying to use that hallway as an example, you're probably not going to get reliable data from that because you're going to have shifts in the levels of the floor. Not every building is constructed perfectly, but the idea is that by code you do it as physically straight and angular as possible.
Okay. So you're basically saying that, yeah, they try to make it flat, but technically when you get really down to the precise details, there's probably going to be some imperfections. It's not going to be a perfectly flat floor, correct?
Like with everything, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Let me just put this in the super chat, in the chat here real quick.
I'm sure I'm contradicting myself from something I said 10 minutes earlier.
It's all good. Okay. Okay, well, I'm not done yet because it gets better. It gets a lot better. So that's what a lot of the Globers started to say. When flat earthers started going to these long hallways, putting a flashlight on one end, walking 400 feet across, and then they start to lower the camera to the floor, and when it's like a foot above the floor, the flashlight disappears. The Globers started saying the floor is uneven. There's imperfections in the floor, and that's what's obstructing the flashlight. Okay, fair enough. So then this guy, Life is Short, I urge everyone to go subscribe to Life is Short. I'm going to put
Go subscribe, everyone. Do it.
Yeah, I'm going to urge him right here in the chat. Everyone subscribe now. So this guy decided he was going to go out and test this Glober claim that an uneven floor is causing the light to disappear bottom up, because what flat earthers are saying is that things can disappear bottom up on a flat surface due to the angular resolution limit of your viewing instrument, be it your eye, be it your camera. And this gets into really technical details about how optics work. You might be very interested in it. So let's go ahead and diffraction limits also play an important role here. So the guy decided to do was he went to a long hallway. He put a flashlight on one end. He walked about 400 feet across. But this time, instead of having one camera, he had two cameras. One was a Canon EOS 70D, and the other was an iPhone 6S. He put the center of the lenses at the same height right next to each other on the floor. Okay, same height. So the center of each lens. So you got a big ass Canon lens, and then you got a tiny little iPhone lens at the back of the camera. Different aperture sizes, different diffraction limits, because that's what's causing things to disappear bottom up on a flat surface. It's not Earth curve, it's diffraction limits. The camera, well, I'll go ahead and I'll just play it for you here. So he puts them both next to each other. He puts the camera's heights at the same, he puts the center lens of both cameras at the same height, looking out towards the flashlight at the other end of the hallway. And this is what happens. This is his EOS 70D on the floor. And this is just him. You know, he's saying, assuming the top of the light source at 1 centimeter above the floor and a 4 centimeter observer height, the physical obstruction across the floor would have to overcome these heights to obscure the light. So then he puts it to the test. So here it is. Here's a footage from the Canon EOS 70D, and you can see the flashlight visible, even though the camera's sitting on the floor. You see a pinprick of light out in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
Now what he does is he's got the iPhone in his hand right now. He's going to place it on a stack of papers right next to the camera, which he measured the stack of papers so they're right there at the center of lens height. So when he puts the iPhone 6S on the camera, it's around the same level. And then you zoom in and you look in, and you can no longer see that flashlight. But then he lifts the iPhone up higher a few inches, and then this is what happens. the flashlight, is visible again. So, if it's a physical obstruction on the floor causing the light to disappear from the bottom, then why would the light be only visible in the camera, in one camera, but not the other?
So did he put? Sorry, can you go back to the frame where it was showing exactly where the heights of the different lenses were?
Yep.
I think I missed something. I'm getting a little too drunk, so I'm gonna
Put that down, man. Put that down. Liquor. It's the elixir for the glow model. Because when you think you live on a spinning rock for no reason, you have to drink your woes away. Unfortunately, it's like it's a depressing worldview in my view.
I'll drink to that. No, I'm kidding.
Let me know if you were done looking at it or whatever.
Does he have a picture of his actual iPhone lens at the same height?
Let me see. Well, he's using the iPhone as one of the cameras, so I don't think he ever shows it. You can just see him lowering it down onto the stack of papers. I don't
see a reference of his actual, like, the thing is he could take the Canon camera and then photograph where his iPhone is.
Are you suggesting like a conspiracy theory that he's deceiving you?
No. I think maybe he just overlooked that.
So the other possibility, dude, other than that he's an idiot who overlooked it, made a mistake, big stupid mistake, other than that he could be lying, is that the Earth is fucking flat and things can disappear bottom up due to diffraction limits and the angular resolution limit of your viewing instrument. That's also a possibility.
It's also where the actual image sensor of the camera is. If they're actually sitting at the same spot, then that would make sense, and I would have to argue that fact. But from I can't tell if he actually did put the phone's camera lens at the same level.
Okay. So if you want to appeal to you don't know, and maybe he did it wrong, or maybe he's lying, that's fine. You weren't there, and indeed that's what flat earthers generally do to you. They say you're lying, NASA's lying. If I wasn't there, I can't prove it, and that's fine. If you want to be a hyper skeptic, that's cool.
I don't know where his lens is sitting. Like, if he had a third camera, or maybe he had a buddy like doing it.
Maybe
like,
if it was 10 more miles away, right?
Fuck.
No, look, it's all good, man. I like to call that moving the goalpost, and I'm not gonna say that what he did. Sorry.
Call it what you will. It's fine.
I love to call it that because I think that's what it is. But I'm not gonna say that every variable has been accounted for here. I'm just going to say that I've seen dozens of flat earthers go to long hallways, lower the camera before the camera even touches the floor. The flashlight disappears. They said it's because of an uneven floor, so they went out to test that. They put 2 cameras, and they put them at the same height, disappeared in one, but was still visible in the other. Then they lift the one that had disappeared up a few inches, and it reappears again. We just keep...
If you want to be precise, use lasers.
Well, globers love to say that lasers are subject to refraction, and they scatter. They love to shit on lasers too, because flat earthers have taken lasers out.
In an experiment identical to this, if you wanted to use something that would actually give you a more accurate representation, you could use lasers.
I have a feeling that first of all, I've heard so many globers shit on lasers, basically saying don't use them in any experiment, period. That I know what would happen if he came back with the same results. If he came back with the same results using lasers, you would just move the goalpost again because you don't want to believe that the Earth is flat.
Like high quality diodes and all that stuff. Whatever.
You don't want to believe the Earth is flat. I mean, I think that's the problem with some people is they just don't want to believe it. They want to believe the globe, but they hate the flat.
If the Earth is flat, I'm gonna definitely do a bunch more drugs and try to figure out what's going on. But I just remain a little unconvinced. Like,
that's fine.
These they're fascinating. I will say that they're fascinating. I'm really interested to see how these experiments roll out. But I mean, they're kind of done in a little bit of a. I mean, I don't want to say unprofessional, but like a little bit of a.
Well, they're better than Aristotle, the Flintstones guy, watching something disappear with his naked eye and saying it proves we live on a sphere.
I don't even know. Like honestly, I don't even know about that account. I don't know how he could notice from a naked eye that the ship's disappearing from the bottom up because
I
you
agree.
have to be able to have like eagle eye vision to be able to see 12 miles into the distance.
I agree. Hey, here's an interesting fun fact. Speaking of weird coincidences that we have to swallow if we want to think we live on a spinning space ball, I'm gonna go to Google right now and I'm gonna type this in here. How far away is the horizon? Okay, you're standing on the shoreline. Let me share my screen in case I'm not sharing my screen. Share screen. And okay, how far away is the horizon? This is Google, dude. This isn't me. This is Google. For an observer on the ground with an eye level height of 5 feet 7 inches, the horizon is at a distance of 2.9 miles. Now, guess what I've even had top tier globe defenders admit to me? Guess what they've admitted? You want to hear this?
Are they referencing that from Quora?
Well, it is Quora, but I do believe that's the answer you're going to find. If you're standing on a sphere of 24,900 miles circumference, 6 feet tall, how far away is that apparent line where the ocean bulges and meets the sky, the horizon? That's the answer you're going to get across the board. It might vary by maybe a few inches, but that's the number they give you. The horizon is about 3 miles away. I've had Globers admit to me that on a flat Earth with a horizon created by perspective, you know what perspective is, right? Where the floor appears to rise up and the sky appears to drop down, and it seems to hit around the center of your eye level.
And anybody that's done like basic arts will
Exactly.
know.
Exactly. Very fundamental stuff in arts. Perspective, as some call it. Well, on a flat Earth, with a floor appearing to rise up and a sky appearing to come down, due to perspective, that vanishing line, that point of meet, due to perspective, which can be calculated with angular resolution and diffraction limits, that horizon that you would see due to perspective is about 3 miles away for somebody who's 6 feet tall. And I've had top tier Globers. They're just like, you're right, and I guess that's just another coincidence. I have. Oh, really? You're telling me that on a flat Earth?
Well, the thing is that directly contradicts the footage that you showed.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
No. No. I mean the 3 mile horizon line. Doesn't that contradict the? I mean, you were looking at what, something like 14 miles away, and that was still not at the horizon line.
Well, you're saying it's not at the horizon line, but I still have no. You haven't shown me any, like, what frame did you say it wasn't at the horizon? Because I don't really.
Right there. Okay, say right there.
This here in the foreground is not 13 miles away.
There's some boats to the right of the lighthouse in a chunk of this video. I forget where it is.
Yeah, well, they're not boats. They're actually, well, they might have been boats because there are some boats, but there's something called Stiltsville out there. They're actually houses.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're houses on stilts in the middle of the ocean. It's kind of crazy. I would be fucking freaked out living there, but
yeah, maybe if you turn into a hermit.
Yeah, and I might end up just being a hermit. Okay, let me see if I can get that frame. So like these.
Yeah, I think it's in the beginning there. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's Stiltsville shit. I gotta go forward, man. This is just too choppy.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's it. Yeah.
You think so? But I don't see where you're saying the horizon isn't visible.
No, I'm not saying it's not visible. I'm saying it's farther than the 3 miles that Quora,
Okay.
whoever says.
Well, okay. Well, there's a few things. So number one, every day I went out there, I saw something different. So according to the Sphere Earth Defenders, the horizon, the apparent horizon, can be warped up and down by refraction. That's how they explain this super flat footage that I captured. They said that it's bending because of refraction, and that's why you can see it. So that will extend, that will appear to extend or bring closer where the apparent horizon is. If you can see more because it's being pulled, it's lifted up due to refraction, then that right there shits on how far we can really say the horizon is. So I'm not so quick to say, well, I saw a highly refracted video of a long distance observation, whether it looks flat or it looks like there's obstruction, and say, well, that's how far the horizon has to be. Yeah, that's how far the horizon is on a pure geometry based on the numbers they say the sphere is. But when you get into reality where there's refraction and atmosphere, the horizon, at least according to the sphere guys, can be refracted up, and you can see things that are supposed to be hidden behind it. So it'll artificially extend how far away the horizon is. My point isn't necessarily what we see in the real world. My point is, what does the bare geometry of the sphere say the distance to the horizon would be for somebody who's 6 feet tall? And then, why in the hell does that pure geometry number match? Why does that match how far away a horizon would be due to angular resolution? Why would a perspective horizon line? That's a weird coincidence. What do you think? What do you think about that?
I have a hard time squaring the reference as to what was just like physically tangible through your video. I guess I mean, again, like the atmospheric occlusion and weather patterns, I would have to say are probably the main variables that dictate the difference that you're seeing at the different days that you're going out.
Sure, okay, but what about the pure geometry? What about okay? So
I mean, if you're just take it on a physical basis,
pure geometry, no light refraction, no reality, no atmosphere, no real world shit. Just they say that if you're 6 feet tall, based on how big they say the Earth is, the horizon is 3 miles away. And this guy did the calculations.
I don't even think that's true on just on a standard observational level, because I've seen horizons that are well over about 3 miles away.
Well, there you go. And again, now when we're talking long distance observations, we are now talking about heavy atmospheric conditions doing all types of wild shit to the light. So I'm actually gotten to the point, dude, even though I've captured footage of incredible flatness, I'm at the point where I don't buy any of it. Whether it shows things disappearing bottom up, whether it shows perfectly flat, I'm not buying any of it, because I think that the very attempt to prove what we live on by pointing at something far away obscured by refraction and atmosphere is insanely stupid. But let me just finish my point here, because
Sure, yeah.
This guy did the math, and he basically concluded that the angular resolution limit of the human eye, and I believe the angular resolution limit of the human eye is 0.02 degrees. He did the calculations. The angular resolution limit of the human eye is a match for the sphere Earth that they say we live on. So what I'm trying to tell you here, dude, is that as much as you don't like it, as much as I don't like it, because I don't like it, I believe that the sphere Earth is a genius deception. Some smart motherfucker, I don't know who it was, and honestly, you have to get spiritual and at a certain point. When the shape of the Earth matches the angular resolution limit of the human eye, you have to start getting spiritual. You have to start going beyond just, stuff.
I can level with that, yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm saying, what a coincidence. What are the odds? How the fuck is that possible? Why is that even happening? Why do the sun and moon appear to be the same size? Why does the angular resolution limit of the human eye match the radius of the fucking sphere Earth they say we live on? Someone's up to something, and I need answers, and no one's giving me answers. Everyone's failing to give me answers.
Let me ask you something. So, what's the point then?
Of what?
Why? Why hide the fact? Why hide the fact that the Earth is flat? Who benefits?
Well, shit, all the rocket people you mentioned definitely benefit.
How?
It's their salaries, man. They lose their jobs.
But if they're spending okay,
Let me just be clear. I'm not judging the rocket scientists. I'm not saying that they're lying. I'm not saying that. Let me rephrase that. I'm not saying that they're in on it, but you did ask who benefits, and I'm saying if you make money in the industry that's involved in space, then you have an interest. You benefit. I'm not saying you're involved in the cover up, and I don't even think it's a cover up per se. I think it's just we've been presupposing we live on a sphere for 2,500 years before we had any real good proof of it, before we had any rockets, any fancy rocket words. We've been believing we lived on it. When you presuppose you live on it, when the military, when the government, when the educational systems perpetuate that we live on a sphere, and everybody believes they live on a sphere, before we actually have rockets to prove and go up that we live on a sphere, everybody is gearing and guiding their research, their innovations, their tools, their technology, their concepts. Everybody's gearing it to the globe. Everybody's gearing it to the ancient 2,500-year-old presupposition.
Why?
Why? Well, again, first of all, because it's a presupposition. So people perpetuate what they think is true. If it's a belief and it's handed down, everybody believes it. People perpetuate it. Their minds are geared towards it. Just like the people who got in an airplane at 35,000 feet altitude, looked out the window and thought they could see curve that Neil deGrasse Tyson says isn't there. People see shit that doesn't exist because they've been told it's there. And everybody's telling everybody it's an ancient presupposition. So that's like a practical possibility for why all the technology you mentioned exists, why all the research and the funding exists, and the technological advances exist, and the orbital mechanics exist, because we've been presupposing it before we had orbital mechanics, before we had any of it. And so when NASA has to fake the space race to beat Russia, okay, sorry, not fake the space race, when they have to do this, when they're in the space race and they have to fake the moon landing with Russia, what do you think they're going to go up?
And well, at least according to history, Russia tried to do the same thing. They had their N-1 rocket, which was a spectacular failure. They had 4 unsuccessful rocket launches. In fact, the Russians had a better shuttle than we did for a certain time, the Buran, but that was decommissioned after the Soviet Union collapsed. That's a bit of an aside.
Okay.
But there was competition, at least. I mean, maybe you could say that, yeah, that was fabricated, but I don't know if Russia and the U.S. would be in cahoots, especially if they're in the middle of an arms race.
They don't have to be in cahoots. They just have to be in the military peacocking game called the space race. That's to me what space is in part. And if it turns out nuclear weapons are fake,
that does make some sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a giant parade. That's why North Korea sends his guys out and they do military parades. It's all about showing your government's ability to fuck the other guy up. And
big dick.
Sorry? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's comparing their dicks. And space is the final frontier, though the Red Hot Chili Peppers say it's made in a Hollywood. They say it's made in a Hollywood basement, so maybe they're onto something.
Stanley Kubrick, yeah, or Stephen Kubrick. I forget what his name
is. Stanley Kubrick. Yeah. Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. So I totally that's part of what I view space as. Is it's the final frontier, man. It's the thing that every government now. Once America faked the moon landing, if we just assume that they faked it, now every other government has to be part of this ruse, this racket. They all have to have their own space program now. Otherwise, you're going to look like your government's a piece of shit compared to the America. So of course they're all.
They haven't though. Why though? I mean I don't mean to be like, I don't mean to just hammer you with the whys, because I know it's kind of like an open-ended dickhead question. But no. I mean, I don't see the purpose of smaller states using any sort of infrastructure or cost to perpetuate this whole, I guess, charade. I want, like, the thing is like, I'm open to believing it. I just don't. It doesn't make sense in my head. I want to hear what, like, if I want to hear how you got to your reason, and maybe you could explain to me how that makes sense.
Well, I think I've basically already said it. Is, first of all, I'm not married to the globe, and I think that's step number one. I think if you're married to the globe, you will never fall in love with flat Earth, so to speak. And I really feel like that's what's going on with a lot of people who just won't give in a single inch when it comes to this debate. Like, dude, sun and moon appearing to be the same size. What a fucking coincidence. Crazy. Dude, angular resolution limit of the human eye would create a horizon at 3 miles. Just exactly the same distance that the sphere Earth's horizon is based on how big they say it is. Like, people aren't willing because they're married to the globe. So nothing. They won't even be like, that's a head scratcher. That's a head scratcher. No, they just keep moving the goalposts. They'll just constantly come up with excuses because they are married to the globe. So number one, you can't be married to the globe. You have to be willing to say, this is all bullshit. Number two, I've seen that a lot of the best globe proofs have been debunked. Eratosthenes, utterly wrecked. Ships disappearing bottom up, utterly destroyed. Things can disappear bottom up due to the angular resolution limit of the human eye or the camera you're using. Been demonstrated. Enough for me. I believe it. I think the guy demonstrated it perfectly. Now, if you're married to the globe, you'll say he needs lasers. And you'll say he needs 10 cameras. And you'll say, you just never want to give in because that's where the globe starts to collapse. All right, when you lose all the pillars of what proved the globe starts collapsing, and you can't believe it anymore. I don't know what else I don't know what else I can tell you, man. I'm not crazy. I'm not a cult member. I'm not stupid. I don't think I'm stupid. I'm not believing it because I want to believe in fantasies. I'm not believing it because, I just want to live in a world of fantasy. In fact, I've come to the conclusion that the globe is the fantasy. And if you want to get deeper into why would they lie, aside from the fact that it's an ancient presupposition, so we believed in it before we had any rockets to go prove what the hell we were on. Aside from the fact that everybody believes it, so everybody just assumes that's what it is, so then everybody is when you say things like, oh, but GPS works, it's like, yes, that can seem like a very powerful evidence, because how could this thing possibly work? But at the same time, the way I see it is, but there's millions of people collectively honing this globe model over decades, centuries, millennia, as we piece our information and our observations of the world around us as science advances. But when you have that presupposition, 2,500-year-old presupposition, that we live on a sphere in the back of your mind, everything you do in science, everything you do in your innovations, everything you do in your research is to confirm that, is to affirm the presumption. It's a confirmation bias on a massive scale. So I absolutely believe that it's possible for millions of people, without being in on a conspiracy, to chip in little by little pieces of the puzzle to make this globe model as airtight as possible. And I'll admit, it's a good model. They've mastered this thing. They've mastered it. I mean, it's genius. Like earlier you said, oh, well, yeah, even if you're using your GPS, yeah, it does look flat to me too. It looks flat to me too. The world looks flat to me too. Yeah, because any cross-section of a globe, if it's small enough of a cross-section, is basically going to look flat. The globe is so genius that it can be both a sphere... I'm going to let that one
Sorry.
Go. No, sorry. The globe is so genius that it can be both a sphere and a flat Earth at the same time. Yeah. It's genius. I'm blown away, but there's two ways I can look at it. How could something so genius be created? One of my views is Satan is real and that motherfucker is running shit. That's one view. I'm not going to say I approve of it, but it makes you wonder sometimes, because if it turns out that the globe model is a lie, it's all fake, then goddamn, that's a pretty genius model for somebody to come up with. And
maybe perhaps in another podcast we can go into deep spiritual philosophy.
Yeah, we can. Well, my latest is sharp stick philosophy, because I've come to the conclusion lately that the world is a vicious place. It's just a bunch of people with sharp sticks trying to kill each other. But that's a totally different subject.
Credible.
Anyways, are we done for today, man? You think we got it out of our systems?
I think this is a good place to wrap it up, man. I'll say that's like I said in the beginning, like a lot of this was curiosity, and I'm just fascinated by this. This is really fun, actually. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I really did. I loved it, man. I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate that we can have a conversation. Can get heated sometimes, but we don't have to fucking hate each other just because we have different views. So I really
It's all good,
appreciate
man.
that.
It's all good.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, man. Well, maybe we can do it again, bro. I hope you continue to investigate this. I hope maybe you can give me some good answers to some of the questions that I have.
Well, possibly we might even be able to run some experiments. Maybe we can get together and figure out what the next logical step would be in terms of trying to observe these phenomenon for ourselves. And
hey, man. If at any point I got a P1000. A lot of my viewers were gracious enough. They chipped in for it. It's this incredible camera. It's massive. In fact, let me pull it out real quick. Hold up. Turn this light on here. Yeah, here's the P1000. It might be delayed on YouTube by like 30 seconds, but it's really it's incredible. It zooms like insane. Yeah, man, if you want to head out one of these days, man, we can go do some long distance observations. I'd love to take you out and see what we see. And you know what? You'll probably see some obstruction, because that's what I saw the most, was obstruction. Seeing completely and utterly flat was rare. It was reserved for days where the water was flat and still like a mirror, and days where the temperature of the water was very close to the temperature of the air, which has minimal refractive conditions. And so to me that proves things. But
sure, man.
Yeah, so maybe we can do that one day.
I've got a high power telescope. I can put some sun filters on there so we can look at some sunspots and maybe see if you can depict a ball or not. I'll be interested to see what you have to say about that.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Totally, man.
Are we staying a little bit after the call, or what's going on here?
Well, the thing is, I'm probably gonna chat with the chat for a little bit afterwards. So
all right, I'll
be here after you leave. So whenever you leave is when we leave. But we can definitely keep in touch via Facebook Messenger for anything. Okay.
Sure, man. This was fun.
Yeah.
I really like this. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thank you, Davis. Really appreciate it. Had a fun time. And thanks again, man. Maybe we'll do it again.
All right, if you guys want to swarm my channel, go check out Primal Media, and you can just go ahead and like put a bunch of negative comments and downvotes on my videos.
I didn't know you had a damn channel. You should have told me you had a channel. I would have put a damn link here.
Nah, you're good. I barely post, but I'm thinking about starting it back up here soon.
All right, well, I'm just gonna put a link to your channel, because what's it called again?
Primal Media. It's changed names a few times. Maybe I'll just link it here.
It's got like a gray logo. White and black.
Oh, Primate Media. Sorry, it's got this like psychedelic monkey on the front.
Primate Media. Okay, found it. All right.
Yep. You'll see some visual effects tests where I use spheres as planets and all that stuff.
I bet you have some.
You can go ahead and spam me there.
All right. Everyone subscribe to him.
Shit, none of those are it, but fuck. All right.
None of those are it? You're kidding, right?
Hold on. I'll link you. All right, check your messenger
chat. There's a fucking gorilla with like a psychedelic looking thing on it.
Wait, am I just lagged here?
I think you're lagged, dude. I think. No, that was the first results I got. Then I typed Primate Media, and then I found the one for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, the one that I see on the screen right now is not it. The like orangey yellow background.
Oh my.
Dude, this is a disaster.
Okay, so,
I'm sorry. This is my fault. I prepared very poorly.
No. Okay, so wait. This is the channel where Primal Creativity. Is that yours?
No.
That's not.
I messaged you on Facebook. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, okay. I think Primate Media, and now I see another slip space render test.
Yeah, that was something I did a while ago. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
That's the one. That's the one.
Yes, it says Blacklight Digital now. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. It still has
wow, I can't believe that. That was great. Let me take that comment out. Oh fuck. That's great.
That'd be funny if some random channel gets a bunch of. Oh, never mind.
You're gonna get a bunch of flat Earth haters.
Feel free to troll me there. I'll be watching. So.
Okay, that's the right channel. Now we're linked in. Okay, man. So whenever you want to go, then it's up to you, bro. I'm going to read the chat for a little, so you can do it.
All right, man.
Please.
You do your thing. I'm probably going to hop off for the night. If you feel like messaging me afterwards, feel free. But,
I'll do that.
I'm going to sign off.
Okay,
thanks,
man.
everyone. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Later, man. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Later.
All right, good night. Wow, that was fun. That was pretty fun. Oh, good God. Hey, thank you for everybody who's tuning in. Listen, YouTube demonetized me like a couple months ago, and if you guys want to support me, I know you guys can't send super chats anymore because YouTube is Nazi-tube. But if you do want to support, if you want to say send a little tip or something, I'll put a PayPal link. You guys can donate if you'd like. I'll put it right here in the chat for you guys. Also in the description right down there. Donate here if you're interested. Put this over here. You know, some of you guys mentioned that I've had a reduction in videos over the last couple of months. Well, I generally only upload when I'm interested in doing so. But I've been busy lately because there's bills to pay, man. If you guys didn't know, there's something called bills. And yeah, the fact of the matter is that when YouTube demonetizes you, you don't have time for other things because you gotta work to pay the bills. So it's just a sad economic reality. Also, guys, if you're interested, we have shirts. Science Man says it's flat. It's fantastic. You can't see Earth curve from 128,000 feet, according to Science Man himself. If you guys are interested in picking up a shirt, that stuff is flat. Because according to even mainstream consensus science now, you cannot see Earth curvature from 128,000 feet. Links to these shirts are right down there in the description. I'm gonna hang out here for a little bit and just see what's going on in the chat. Yeah, it looks like we got a couple donations here via PayPal. Again, I'm sorry, guys, that there's no more super chats and I can't read your super chats live. I apologize. YouTube did demonetize me because basically anybody who, you know, isn't part of the establishment, anti-Trump, you get demonetized. Thor Winther, $5 donation. Thank you. Really appreciate it. And we also got another one from Edgar, $10 donation via PayPal link right down there in the description. Really appreciate it. Yeah, you know, it's an economic reality. When you got to pay the bills and YouTube demonetizes you, you got to spend all your time working to actually make money so you can pay the bills. And so that's obviously going to take away from the time that I spend here, and that's just it. But if you do like my work, and maybe you want to see me upload more regularly because I actually have time to do so, the links are right down there. Anyways, so we got some people in the chat here. That was a fantastic discussion. I think it got a little bit heated sometimes, but in a lively way and in a respectful way and in a way where you don't have to hate the person that you're debating. You don't have to demonize them as being dangerous, you know, like anybody who questions consensus science is dangerous. We can all have our own opinions. You can learn to be more tolerant. Be liberal, be progressive, be tolerant. Tolerate, learn to put down your prejudices, your bigotry, your intolerant nature. Put that primitive, regressive side of yourself away. Stop being so afraid of flat earthers. Stop being so afraid of people who have a different opinion. Be tolerant. Be loving. Why are you so bigoted, prejudicial? Why all the hate to flat earthers? Why are you so hateful? Come on, guys. Stop being so hate driven. You guys are just full of hate, man. We gotta ban hate, man. Be a progressive liberal. Oh. Okay. Well. Yeah. Yeah, guys. That was Great. Yeah, that was really good. Hey, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I want to thank you guys for somehow making it through the YouTube shadow banning algorithm. I'm shocked you guys made it in here. Really crazy. YouTube did admit that. Yeah, thank you, Flat Earth in the chat. YouTube did admit they're censoring Flat Earth. So it's you would be a conspiracy theorist if you didn't think they were censoring Flat Earth, because they said they're censoring Flat Earth. Oh man. It looks like another PayPal donation from Dan. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you, $5. Really appreciate it. What are your thoughts on No Say Gonzalez censorship? I haven't been watching Jose's show for like the last month because it's just a shit show. It's just a bunch of desperate, sad globe cultists just circle jerking each other, pretending to not know the real arguments against the globe. And it's just embarrassing, and it's just boring. It's just there's nothing else there but obfuscation, deflection, and circle jerking. So really, there's no good content there. So anyway, so there's no good content, you don't watch. Simple as. You know what, mind of God? Don't say Donald Trump anywhere, because you'll get demonetized. There's censorship, but why don't you use DTube? I want to use one of these other platforms, guys. I really do. I just don't know which one to do. I want to put all my eggs in one of these alternative baskets, but I don't know which one. BitChute doesn't have live streaming. It's just after a while, how do you not have live streaming yet? It's just crazy. It's truly crazy. Yeah, so that was very interesting. I thought that, I think I made a good case for why I'm a globe skeptic, and hopefully he sees why I've come to this point. Hey, thank you, D Wheel. Really appreciate it. Yeah, part of it is like a boycott thing. I lose motivation to post content on my channel when I know that I'm being robbed of like 80% of it. It's because of the shadow banning. I have a backup channel. In fact, the link is right down there in the description. I have a second channel on YouTube. If you guys want to subscribe to it, I did like a random impromptu live stream the other day just out of boredom. I do put original content on my backup channel. In fact, I'll put a link here to that. Obviously, I have my BitChute channel, which you guys should subscribe to as well. But I have a second YouTube channel, and like the average number of views I get, it's crazy. I get like 80% of my subscriber count in views for every video I upload. I think I have like 175 subscribers right now. My average video gets like 100, 120. It's like you can just tell I'm not being shadow banned on my second channel that I don't even use. You can just tell I'm not being shadow banned. Because I almost get like 100% click-through rate. So every time I upload to my main channel, it's like getting punched in the gut because I know I'm being robbed. Not only have I been robbed because they demonetized me, but I'm being robbed because my energy is not allowed to reach the people that I've built and connected with over the last 7-8 years that I've been on YouTube. So it's disgusting what YouTube is doing. It's disgusting what big tech is doing. Trump seems to be getting closer and closer to actually doing something about it. We got the Project Veritas videos that continually expose how Google and YouTube are shadow banning everything they disagree with. And the only people at this point who deny that big tech is censoring people they don't like are conspiracy theorists. Paranoid crackpot conspiracy theorists who don't trust the evidence. And it's sick. It's really sick. So yeah, it's a frustrating thing, but what are we gonna do? So maybe I'll figure something out. Part of me, I've been debating this now for months, for like years now. You know, just getting rid of. Not, I don't think I'll delete this channel, but I'll probably, I'll probably, just completely abandon it. And go somewhere else. But I haven't found the right alternative yet. Maybe if BitChute had live streaming, I'd be there every day. But they don't. So what? I got to upload to BitChute and then live stream on DLive. Like, someone's got to be able to find a good alternative that consolidates the essential features, and I haven't found that platform yet. So anyways. Yeah, I've heard of Library. There's also BitTube, and BitTube has live streaming. I was seriously considering BitTube. It's one of the options on the table. Yeah, Periscope is just trash, and they'll probably ban me there too. Isn't Periscope like in cahoots with Twitter? They're owned by each other, or one bought the other, or something. So, it's going to be the same people. Mind of God asks, what does that play more, you think? Angular resolution or atmospherics? That's a good question. What does that play more? That's a good question. I definitely don't know which one is more, but I do know that they're both a factor, for sure. Definitely both a factor. You have to consider all the variables, and Aristotle didn't know about none of this shit. Or maybe he did. He didn't tell anybody. I don't know which one it is. But, refraction and all these scattering and all these things that take place when you're looking out over 20 miles, you just can't. So I wonder why globe believers are just such unrelenting cult members. I've never figured that out. Why are globe believers, people who defend the globe, why are they such unrelenting cult members? I don't know. I don't know the answer. Like, I guess it's just a religitard. You're just a religious idiot, and so you just think you live on a sphere with no evidence. I don't understand it. It's just creepy cult behavior. I think YouTube needs to crack down on fake news. It's just sick. So yeah, I hope that the Trump administration maybe sues the hell out of big tech. And it looks like there's steps being made in that direction. Because now basically everybody's being censored. There's just nobody's safe. It's funny stuff. Yep. Thanks again to the people who donated. Appreciate the hell out of it. Really, really appreciate it. Yeah, well, gaytheist. I think the people should be able to use that term. So I want everyone to use gaytheist. Owen Benjamin talks about gammas, and I really feel like atheists are like the ultimate gammas. They're just the most passive-aggressive, butthurt dudes. I really think that it's like so many atheists are straight up gammas. It's funny, man. It's funny. Anyways, I want to say thanks again to Davis for coming on. We had a great discussion. It seemed like his best argument was, I've been studying rocket science, so there's no way the Earth is flat. And it's like, dude, no. I do like how I pulled out that Theranos example to demonstrate that thousands of people can spend billions probably of dollars to create technology that ends up being basically useless, and the whole thing implodes, and the freaking owner of the company, Theranos, is like facing jail time now. I do think that was pretty keen, pretty cunning. So, hey, I want to say thanks again. Maybe me and Davis will do it again soon. Thank you again to everybody who donated. Maybe I just got to spam that donate link a little more often. But yeah, it's just a reality, you know. When you got to pay the bills, you get less time for things that don't pay the bills. Thanks again, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll keep in touch. I'll see you guys soon. Don't be a Globe cult member. Put down your religion. If you think you live on a spinning space ball and there's no evidence, like, put down your religion. Don't be religious. Don't be a cult member. Put down the cult, and don't be so hateful. Don't be so hateful of people who support science and know the Earth is flat. Like, don't be so full of hate, and you hate them, and it's intolerant. You're intolerant. Why are you so intolerant of people with different ideas? Why are you so hateful? Why are you such a bigot? Why are you such a why the prejudice? We need to be progressive and liberal. And what you're doing is you're just being a bigot and full of hate. So thanks for watching, everybody.